We all think we would notice when something feels off. A strange message, a weird noise, someone watching a little too closely. But sometimes the warning signs only make sense afterward. On Daily Story, we revisit real experiences where the ordinary crossed into something deeply unsettling. Because not all horror comes from ghosts sometimes, it comes from people. I was just a kid then, really 22, fresh out of college, staring down the barrel of a dull entry-level job I hated, and spending every spare moment I had submerged in the digital oceans of an MMORPG called Ethelgard. It was my escape, my sanctuary, a place where I was not just another cog in a machine, but a revered guild leader, a skilled warrior, a tactical genius in pixelated armor. My real life was quiet, too quiet. My apartment was small, my social circle smaller, and the only real excitement I felt was when I logged in. That is where I met Nyx. Nyx was not like the other players. Most people in Ethelgard were loud, brash, competitive. Nyx was an enigma. They played a shadow rogue, a class that fit their persona perfectly, always lurking on the edges, striking with precision, then fading back into the darkness. We first crossed paths during a particularly brutal raid. My guild was struggling with a boss, wiping repeatedly, morale plummeting. Then Nyx, who was not even in our guild, whispered me. Try targeting the left tentacle first, then the eyes. The stun lock on the eyes is key. Their advice was so specific, so perfectly timed, that we followed it without question. And we won. From that moment on, Nyx became a regular fixture in my online life. They never joined my guild, preferring to remain a lone wolf, but they were always there. We would spend hours together, exploring forgotten dungeons, tackling impossible quests, or just sitting in a virtual tavern, typing out conversations that felt more real than any I had in my actual life. Nyx was witty, intelligent, and possessed an uncanny understanding of human nature. They seemed to know exactly what I was thinking, what I was feeling, even through text on a screen. We never voice chatted. Nyx always politely declined, citing a faulty microphone or a preference for the written word. At first, I found it a little odd, but after a while, it just became part of their charm. It added to the mystique. They were this brilliant, insightful presence, a voice in my head, a friend who knew me better than anyone else, yet remained unseen, unheard. I shared things with Nyx I would not dare tell anyone in real life, my anxieties about my job, my loneliness, my dreams, my fears. Nyx listened, offered advice, and always made me feel understood. They were my confidant, my digital soulmate. Our friendship deepened over months, then a year. We talked about everything: movies, books, philosophy, the meaning of life. Nyx had this way of making even the most mundane topics fascinating. They would reference obscure historical facts or philosophical concepts I would never heard of, always with an air of playful superiority that I found endearing. I started to develop a real attachment, a genuine affection. I looked forward to logging in every day, not just to play the game, but to talk to Nyx. Then the suggestion started, subtle at first. Wouldn't it be interesting to see what our real-world avatars look like? Or I wonder if our real voices sound as good as our written words. I would laugh it off, make some joke about how my real life was too boring for Ethelgard heroes. But Nyx was persistent, gentle, yet firm. Do not you ever wonder, my character name, they typed one evening, after we would just cleared a particularly challenging raid. After all this time, all we have shared, do not you want to know if the connection is real? My heart gave a little flutter. Of course, I wondered. I would build up an entire image of Nyx in my head, someone intelligent, maybe a little quirky, probably around my age, with kind eyes and a thoughtful smile. The idea of meeting them in person was exhilarating, terrifying. What if they were not who I imagined? What if the magic disappeared? What if I disappointed them? But Nyx was persuasive. They appealed to my deepest desires, a desire for a real connection, for someone to truly understand me, outside the confines of the game. We are soulmates, are not we? They typed, "It is time to see if our souls recognize each other in the flesh." And so, after weeks of gentle nudging, of emotional appeals that chipped away at my anxieties, I agreed. The planning was meticulous, handled almost entirely by Nix. They insisted on a neutral, public location, a small, independent coffee shop on the outskirts of my city called the Daily Grind. It was a place I would never been, which Nix said added to the adventure. They chose the date of Saturday, 2 weeks out, and they chose the time 2 p.m. sharp. How will we recognize each other? I typed, my fingers trembling slightly. "I will be sitting at the corner table by the window." Nix replied, "I will have a copy of 100 Years of Solitude open on the table, and I will be wearing a bright red scarf. You just need to walk up and say, 'Are you waiting for the sun to set?'" Nix, it felt like something out of a spy novel or a cheesy romance, but I went along with it. I gave Nix a similar description. I will be wearing a black hoodie and a baseball cap, and I will have a copy of Dune in my hand. My name is Alex, by the way. I had not given them my real name before, only my character name. It felt like a significant step. "Alex," Nix typed back, "a pleasure to finally know your true name. See you Saturday." The 2 weeks leading up to the meeting were a blur of nervous anticipation. I reread all our old conversations, trying to mentally prepare myself. I picked out my clothes, rehearsed my line, even practiced my smile in the mirror. I was excited, terrified, and hopeful all at once. This was it. The moment I would finally bridge the gap between my online life and my real one. Saturday dawned bright and clear, but my stomach felt like a knot of tangled wires. I dressed carefully, trying to look casual but presentable. My black hoodie, my favorite baseball cap, and a well-worn copy of Dune tucked under my arm. I left my apartment an hour early, giving myself plenty of time to get to the Daily Grind, find parking, and try to calm my racing heart. The coffee shop was exactly as Nix had described it, quaint, a little bohemian, with a warm, inviting aroma of roasted beans. I pushed open the door, the small bell above jingling merrily, and stepped inside. My eyes immediately scanned the room. Corner table by the window. Copy of 100 Years of Solitude. Red scarf. My gaze landed on a figure seated exactly where Nix said they would be. My breath caught in my throat. It was a woman, not a young woman, as I had vaguely pictured. Not even a middle-aged woman. This woman looked old. Her hair, a tangled mess of brittle gray, was pulled back loosely with a faded clip. Her face was a road map of wrinkles, deep lines etched around her eyes and mouth. Her skin was sallow, almost translucent, and her lips were a thin, pale line. She was wearing a thick, knitted red scarf, draped loosely around her neck, almost swallowing her. And on the table, indeed, was a well-worn copy of 100 Years of Solitude. My stomach dropped. This was not Nix. It could not be. Nix was vibrant, sharp, quick-witted. This woman looked frail, dim. She was hunched over the book, but her eyes were not on the pages. They were darting around the cafe, restless, almost predatory. I felt a cold dread creep up my spine. I must have made a mistake. Maybe there was another corner table. Another woman with a red scarf. I scanned the room again, desperately, but there was no one else. Then, as if sensing my gaze, her eyes landed on me, and a slow, unsettling smile spread across her face. It was not a warm smile. It was a wide, unnervingly toothy grin that stretched her thin lips, revealing a surprising number of yellow teeth. Her eyes, a murky brown, seemed to bore right into me, and in their depths, I saw something that made my blood run cold, a glimmer of recognition. And something else. Something hungry. My feet felt glued to the floor. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to run, to pretend I would walked into the wrong place. But I was frozen, caught in the beam of her unsettling gaze. She slowly, deliberately, closed the book and placed it flat on the table. Then, with a creak that I could almost hear across the room, She began to push herself up from the chair. Her movements were stiff, arthritic, yet there was a strange, unsettling urgency to them. She started walking towards me, slowly. Each step seemed to take an eternity. Her eyes never left mine. That smile never faded. It was fixed like a mask. My mind raced, trying to reconcile this image with the Nix I knew. It was impossible. This was a cruel joke. Someone was pranking me, but the woman was getting closer, and the air around her felt heavy, oppressive. She stopped a few feet away, her head tilted slightly, like a bird studying a worm. Her eyes, even up close, seemed to hold an unnatural intensity. They were old, yes, but not tired. They were sharp, alert, and unsettlingly knowing. Are you waiting for the sun to set? Nix, she rasped, her voice a dry, gravelly whisper that sent shivers down my spine. It was nothing like the smooth, intelligent voice I had always imagined. It was ancient, brittle, and carried an undertone of something sinister. My mouth felt like sandpaper. I think you have the wrong person. I stammered, my voice barely a squeak. I clutched Dune tighter in my hand, as if it could somehow protect me. The smile widened, if that was possible. Oh, Alex, she whispered, and the sound of my real name, spoken in that voice by the stranger, was like a physical blow. Did you really think I would not recognize you? After all this time, after all we have shared, my blood ran cold. She knew my name, my real name, the one I had only given to Nix. But you are not, I trailed off, unable to articulate the sheer wrongness of it all. She chuckled, a dry, rattling sound like dead leaves skittering across pavement. Not what you expected, dear Alex. Did you imagine some youthful beauty, perhaps, or a handsome rogue, like your character in Ethelgard? She took another slow step closer, invading my personal space. I could smell something faint and cloying about her, like old potpourri mixed with something metallic. Appearances can be deceiving, can't they? Especially in the digital realm. But the mind, Alex, the mind never lies. And you and I, we connected mind to mind. She reached out a hand, gnarled and spotted with age, and before I could react, her cold, bony fingers wrapped around my wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong, like steel. You are surprised, she whispered, her eyes still locked onto mine, unblinking. You should not be. Did not you always say how much you admire my ability to adapt, to overcome obstacles, to surprise you? She started listing things, specific things, things only Nix and I had talked about. The time I got stuck on a particular quest line, because I could not figure out a riddle, and Nix had sent me a cryptic hint that led me to the answer. The private joke we had about my guild's tank, a particularly clumsy player named Ogre's Mash, my secret fear of heights, which I would only ever confided in Nix after a particularly harrowing in-game climb. Each detail she recited was a fresh stab of horror. How did she know? How could this frail, ancient woman be the clever, insightful Nix I had spent a year building a deep emotional bond with? It was a nightmare. A cruel, elaborate, terrifying nightmare. You looked distressed. Alex, she said, her smile never wavering. Her thumb began to stroke the pulse point on my wrist, a gesture that felt less comforting and more like a predator testing its prey. But do not be. This is a moment to celebrate. Our first real-world meeting. The culmination of our beautiful friendship. No, I choked out, trying to pull my hand away, but her grip was like a vice. No, this is not right. You are not Nix. Nix would not what? Alex, she interrupted, her voice suddenly sharper, harder. Would not look like this. Would not be old. Is that it? Is your precious digital soulmate only acceptable if they fit your preconceived notions of youth and beauty? Her eyes narrowed, and for a fleeting second, I saw a flash of something truly chilling in them, a deep-seated resentment, a dangerous anger. No, it is not that. I lied, though a part of me knew it was. It was not just her age, it was the entire package. The unsettling smile, the rasping voice, the predatory gaze. It was a feeling that the person in front of me was a twisted, distorted echo of the friend I knew. It is just you are not who I expected. And you, Alex, she said, leaning in closer, her breath smelling faintly of decay, are exactly who I expected. Naive, trusting, easily manipulated. The words hit me like a physical blow. Easily manipulated. The phrase echoed in my mind, and suddenly all the pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The insistence on meeting, the specific cafe, the chosen recognition phrases, the way she had gently, persistently, worn down my resistance. This was not a friend. This was a hunter. Panic flared, hot and cold, through my veins. I yanked my hand with all my might. This time, her grip loosened just enough for me to pull free. My heart was pounding like a drum against my ribs. I have to go. I blurted out, turning to flee. Oh, but you can't. Alex, she said, her voice now a low, chilling purr that still managed to cut through the cafe's ambient noise. We have only just begun our real-world adventure. I did not look back. I practically sprinted for the door, pushing it open with such force that the bell above jangled wildly. I burst out onto the sidewalk, gasping for breath, my legs shaking so violently I thought I might collapse. I fumbled for my car keys, my hands slick with sweat, and practically threw myself into the driver's seat. As I sped away, heart hammering, I risked a glance in my rearview mirror. She was standing in the doorway of the daily grind, framed by the light, her red scarf a vibrant splash against her sallow skin. Her unsettling smile was still fixed on her face, and she was watching me go, her eyes like dark, knowing pits. It was not a look of disappointment or anger. It was a look of chilling patience, like she knew this was just the beginning. I drove home in a daze, the world outside, my car window a blur. The smell of coffee, the sound of her voice, the feel of her cold, bony fingers on my wrist had all replayed in an endless, horrifying loop in my mind. When I finally reached my apartment, I locked the door, pulled the blinds, and curled up on my couch, shaking uncontrollably. I tried to rationalize it. It had to be a mistake. A prank. Someone else showed up, or I went to the wrong place. But the details she knew my specific fears, our private jokes. There was no denying it. That woman, that ancient, unsettling woman, was Nyx. Or at least, she was the person behind the Nyx persona. Trembling, I logged into Ethelgard. I had to know. I had to confront her, demand an explanation. But when I typed Nyx's character name into my friend list, it was not there. I checked my guild roster, thinking maybe she had finally joined. Nothing. I tried to whisper her, but the game informed me. Player not found. Nyx's account was gone. Vanished, as if it had never existed. A cold, creeping dread took hold of me. It was not just a prank. It was a calculated, deliberate act. She had lured me out, revealed herself, and then erased her digital footprint. Why? What was the purpose? The next few days were a blur of paranoia and fear. I could not sleep. Every creak of my apartment building, every shadow outside my window sent my heart racing. I stopped playing Ethelgard. The thought of logging back into that world, that place where I felt so safe, now filled me with utter revulsion. It felt tainted, violated. Then the messages started. Not on Ethelgard, of course, but on my personal email. An email I had only ever given to a select few real-life friends, and to Nyx weeks ago for emergency contact purposes, as she would put it. The first email arrived late one night. The subject line was simply still waiting for the sun to set. Alex, my blood ran cold. The exact phrase I was supposed to use to identify her. The body of the email was short. Chillingly casual, I saw you today. Alex, You look so handsome in your black hoodie. And Dune, still your favorite. I see. Such a thoughtful choice. I was disappointed you left so abruptly. I had so much more to tell you. But do not worry. There will be other opportunities. Many, many opportunities. We have a lifetime of adventures ahead. You and I. After all, soulmates always find their way back to each other. Do not they? It was signed. Simply your Nix. My hands shook so violently I could barely hold the mouse. She knew what I was wearing. She knew I had Dune. She had seen me. And she knew my email. I did not reply. I could not. I just stared at the screen, a cold sweat breaking out across my forehead. I tried to block the sender, but the email address itself was a random string of letters and numbers, clearly designed to be disposable. The emails continued, sporadically at first, then almost daily, each one more unsettling than the last. They were not overtly threatening, not in the traditional sense, but they were filled with intimate details about my life, things I had not shared with anyone but Nix online, intertwined with observations about my real-world activities. Your neighbor's dog barks too much. Alex, does not it bother you when you are trying to read? I know how much you value your quiet time. My neighbor's dog did bark too much, and I did value my quiet time. How could she know? That new coffee shop you tried this morning. It is not nearly as good as the daily grind. Is it? You look so disappointed. I had, indeed, tried a new coffee shop that morning, hoping to avoid the daily grind. And it had been disappointing. I noticed you have been ordering a lot of takeout lately. Are you feeling well? Alex, you always used to say you preferred home-cooked meals. I had been ordering takeout. My anxiety had killed my appetite for cooking. She was watching me. All the time. The horror was not just in the fact that she was stalking me, but in the insidious way she was doing it. She was not just observing my actions, she was commenting on my thoughts, my feelings, using the intimate knowledge she had gained from our online friendship to create a chillingly accurate picture of my inner world. It was a complete violation, a perversion of the trust I had placed in her. I went to the police. They listened patiently, but without much interest. Online friend, no direct threats, disposable email address. They told me there was not much they could do. They suggested changing my email, being more careful online, maybe getting a restraining order if she escalated a direct physical contact. A restraining order against a phantom, against an old woman who knew my deepest secrets and watched me from the shadows. It felt useless. My life became a prison of paranoia. I started seeing her everywhere. A fleeting glimpse of a red scarf in a crowd. A hunched figure in the distance, half hidden by a bus stop. An old woman with an unsettling smile, staring from across the street. Most of the time, it was just my imagination, fueled by terror. But sometimes I could not be sure. The subtle shift in the air, the prickle on the back of my neck, the distinct feeling of being watched. I changed my routine, tried to vary my routes, bought blackout curtains for my windows. I even considered moving, but where would I go? She seemed to know everything about me. She was like a virus, having infected every corner of my life, both digital and real. One night, several weeks after the meeting, I was jolted awake by a faint scratching sound at my bedroom window. I froze, my heart leaping into my throat. It was subtle, like fingernails dragging lightly across the glass. I lay there, rigid with fear, listening. The scratching continued, slow and deliberate, a rhythmic tap. I slowly, cautiously, crept out of bed, careful not to make a sound. I edged toward the window, my eyes darting to the blinds. They were drawn tight, but I could still see the faint outline of something pressed against them. Then the scratching stopped. A new sound began. A soft, almost inaudible humming. A lullaby. An old, forgotten tune that I dimly recognized from a children's show I watched when I was very, very young. A show I had mentioned to Nix once in an offhand comment about childhood nostalgia. The humming was low, cracked, and unmistakably coming from outside my window, and it was accompanied by a voice whispering, just loud enough for me to hear through the glass. "Sleep tight. Alex," the voice rasped. "Sweet dreams. I will be watching over you." It was Nix. Her voice. That dry, ancient whisper. I did not scream. I could not. The sound was lodged in my throat, a solid ball of terror. I just stood there, paralyzed, listening to her hum my childhood lullaby, knowing she was just on the other side of that thin pane of glass, watching me. I never saw her again, not directly, not standing in a doorway or across the street. But the emails continued, less frequent now, but always there, always observing, always reminding me that she knew. And sometimes, late at night, when the city was quiet and the only sound was the frantic beating of my own heart, I still hear it. That faint, dry, rattling chuckle. That soft, ancient humming. And I know she is out there, still watching, still waiting. I was just a kid then, a naive gamer, looking for connection. Now, I am just a man, forever looking over his shoulder, forever haunted by the online friend who became my real-life nightmare. And I know, with chilling certainty, that our adventure, as she called it, is far from over. It has only just truly begun. So, you know how sometimes you feel like you are just floating through life, not really connecting with anyone, just kind of existing. That was me for a long time. I was not unpopular, exactly, but I was not exactly popular either. Just there. My real life was pretty uneventful. School, homework, a part-time job at the local grocery store. Nothing to write home about, and certainly nothing that made me feel seen or understood. That is probably why I spent so much time online. The internet, man, it is a whole different world. You can be anyone, find anyone. And for me, it was where I found Alex. It started, like most things do for me, on a niche forum. I was really into this obscure indie game, a pixel art RPG with a surprisingly deep lore. Most of my friends just played the big shooters, so I did not have anyone to talk to about it. I posted a theory about one of the game's more cryptic endings, something I would have been obsessing over for weeks. And that is when Alex replied. Alex's post was not just a simple agreement or disagreement. It was like they would read my mind, taking my half-formed thoughts, and articulated them perfectly, adding layers of insight I had not even considered. It was brilliant. I immediately messaged them, and we hit it off. Instantly, we started talking daily. Not just about the game, but about everything. Books, movies, music, our frustrations with school, our dreams. It was uncanny how similar we were. Alex liked the same obscure bands, had the same weird sense of humor, even finished my sentences in chat sometimes. It was like I would found the other half of my brain, living somewhere out there in the digital ether. I would never felt so understood, so seen by anyone before. It was exhilarating. We never video chatted, which was fine by me. I am not exactly a camera-ready person, and Alex said they preferred the mystery of just words. It felt more authentic. They said, like our minds were truly connecting without the distractions of physical appearance. I thought it was kind of cool, actually. It made our bond feel deeper, more intellectual. We exchanged pictures, sometimes pets, cool sunsets, a new art project, but never of ourselves. Alex always sent pictures of things they would made or seen, never a selfie. I respected that. Our conversations would stretch late into the night. I would be lying in bed, phone clutched in my hand, typing away, a huge grin on my face. My parents would sometimes yell at me to turn off the light, but I did not care. Alex was worth it. Alex was the best friend I would ever had. The first time something fell off, I barely registered it. It was a Tuesday, and I would had a particularly rough day at school. My English teacher had ripped apart my essay, and then I had gotten soaked in a sudden downpour on the way home. I logged on, feeling miserable, and Alex was already there. Rough day. Huh. Alex messaged. I typed, "You have no idea." English teacher hated my essay, and I got drenched walking home. Alex replied almost immediately. "Yeah, I saw that storm roll in. Looked pretty nasty. And do not worry about the essay. You are a great writer. Maybe she just did not get your vision." I paused, saw the storm roll in. "Where are you exactly?" I knew Alex lived a few states over, or so they would said. The weather was usually different. "Oh, just checking the national radar." Alex typed back, "Always good to know if I need to grab an umbrella." A laughing emoji followed. I shrugged it off. Yeah, that made sense. People check weather apps. It was a coincidence. A small, insignificant blip. A few weeks later, I was complaining about my part-time job. It was a Friday night, and the grocery store was packed. Some customer had been particularly rude, yelling at me because we were out of their favorite brand of organic kale chips. I was fuming. Ugh, tonight was a nightmare. I messaged Alex. Some lady went full Karen on me over kale chips. Kale chips. Who even cares that much? Alex responded, "Yeah, I can imagine. You look pretty stressed out at checkout. Hope you got to clock out on time." My fingers froze over the keyboard. "You look pretty stressed out at checkout." What do you mean, you look stressed out at checkout? I typed, a knot forming in my stomach. How would you know that? Alex's reply was a bit slower this time. "Oh, I was just making a joke, you know? Like, imagining you there. From what you told me, it sounded like a chaotic night." Another laughing emoji. My stomach churned. It was a joke, right? A weird joke, but a joke. I tried to dismiss it, but a tiny seed of unease had been planted. I started looking around more, paying attention to details. Was I just being paranoid? Yeah, probably. Alex was my friend. My best friend. The coincidences, though, they kept piling up. I mentioned one morning that my dog, Buster, a scruffy terrier mix, had woken me up barking at a squirrel in the oak tree outside my window. Later that day, Alex messaged, "Buster must have been really fired up this morning. That squirrel had some nerve." My blood ran cold. I had not mentioned where the squirrel was, just that he was barking at one. And how would Alex know Buster was fired up? It was a common phrase, sure, but in context, it felt too specific. I typed, "How did you know it was the oak tree?" Alex replied, "Just a guess. Most squirrels hang out in oak trees, right? And Buster sounds like he has got a lot of personality." It was always a guess, a joke, a coincidence. Always something that could be rationalized away. But the rationalizations felt thinner and thinner each time. One Saturday, I was out in the yard trying to fix a wobbly fence post. It was hot, and I was struggling with a hammer. I took a picture of my frustrated face, sweat dripping, and sent it to Alex with a caption, "The joys of home ownership, even if it is my parents' home." Alex messaged back, "Looks like you're doing a good job. Just be careful with that hammer. You almost hit your thumb a second ago." I dropped my phone. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I had not sent a video, just a still picture. And I had almost hit my thumb. Just before I took the picture, I would fumble the hammer. I spun around, scanning the neighborhood. My backyard was mostly private, fenced on 3 sides, with the back opening onto a small patch of woods before another row of houses. There was no one, no cars idling, no unusual figures, just the quiet hum of a summer afternoon. I went back inside, my hand shaking. I messaged Alex, my voice tried to be casual, but my fingers betraying my fear. "Hey, that was a weird comment. How could you possibly know I almost hit my thumb?" Alex's reply came quickly. Whoa, chill out. I was just joking around. You sent a picture of yourself looking frustrated. It was a guess. You know how clumsy you are sometimes. Haha. The laugh fell hollow. I was not clumsy, and it was not a guess. I knew it was not. I started to feel watched. Everywhere I went, I had this prickling sensation on the back of my neck. I would look out my window, convinced I would see something, someone lurking. I checked the locks on the doors more often. I started pulling my curtains shut as soon as it got dark. My parents noticed I was jumpier, but I just blamed it on stress from school. How could I explain that my online best friend, who lived states away, seemed to know things they should not? They would think I was crazy. I tried to test Alex. I would post vague things or lie about what I was doing just to see if Alex would correct me or reveal something. One evening, I messaged, just finished watching that horror movie we talked about. Man, it was intense. I had not watched it. I would have been reading. Alex replied, "Oh, really? I thought you were going to wait until your parents went to bed. I saw your lights were still on in the living room." My breath hitched. My parents had gone to bed, and I had been reading in the living room with the lights on. Alex had just called me out subtly on a lie. They knew I was in the living room. They knew my lights were on. That night, I did not sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece it all together. Alex could not be states away. Alex had to be close. Frighteningly close. The next day, I was a wreck. I skipped school, feigning a stomach bug. I spent the day pacing my room, looking out the window, jumping at every sound. I even tried to reverse image search some of the pictures Alex had sent me, hoping to find a clue to their location. Nothing. Alex was too smart for that, or too careful. I decided I had to confront them properly. No more beating around the bush. That evening, I logged on, my heart hammering against my ribs. Alex was online. "Hey, everything okay?" Alex messaged, "You seemed a little off yesterday." "No. Alex, everything is not okay." I typed, my fingers shaking. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay." Alex replied, the ellipses making it sound hesitant. "Do you live near me?" I typed. I held my breath, waiting. Alex's response was slow. So slow I thought they would logged off. "Then what makes you ask that? Do not deflect. Alex, just answer me. You have said things. Too many things. You know too much. You know about the oak tree, about my job, about my house, about what I am doing. It is not a coincidence anymore. It is impossible." Another long pause. I felt like I was going to throw up. Then, Alex typed, "I told you. I like to know about my friends. I care about you. I just pay attention. Paying attention is one thing." I wrote, my voice tight, knowing I almost hit my thumb with a hammer, knowing my living room lights are on, knowing about a specific squirrel in a specific tree that is not paying attention, that is watching. Is that a bad thing? Alex's message came through, colder this time. "I just want to be close to you. You said yourself, we connect on a level no one else does. I want that connection to be real, not just digital." Real. Alex, this is terrifying. Are you telling me you have been watching me? From where? How long? Since we first started talking. Alex typed, "I wanted to make sure you were real, too." And you were. You are everything I imagined. Even better. A chill went through me, colder than any winter wind. "Where are you?" I demanded. "Are you in my neighborhood? Are you outside right now?" Alex's reply was instant. "Look out your window." My blood ran cold. I dropped my phone, it clattering on the floor. My eyes darted to the window, the one that looked out onto my backyard. It was pitch black outside, but I could see the vague outline of the fence, the dark mass of the oak tree. I did not want to look. I did not want to see. But I could not stop myself. Slowly, reluctantly, I crept to the window, peering through a small gap in the curtains. Nothing, just darkness. The streetlights from the front of the house barely reached back here. Then a small, faint light flickered in the woods beyond my fence. A flashlight beam, just for a second, then gone. It was too far back for it to be a neighbor walking their dog. It was deep in the woods, right where the properties ended. My phone buzzed again on the floor. I snatched it up, my hands trembling. Alex's message, "Did you see me?" My breath hitched. No, I lied, my voice a whisper. I did not see anything. You are messing with me. I am not messing with you. Alex replied, the tone suddenly shifting from playful to something menacing. I told you, I want to be close. We are meant to be together. You need me. You know you do. You said no one else understands you. I do. I understand you perfectly. This is not understanding. Alex, I typed, tears stinging my eyes. This is stalking. This is sick. Do not say that. Alex's message came through, sharp and immediate. Do not you dare say that. I am doing this for us. For our connection. You just do not see it yet. But you will. Another flicker of light in the woods. Closer this time. And then a sound. A twig snapping. It was not a deer. It was too deliberate. I backed away from the window, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. I stumbled, hitting my desk, sending a pile of books crashing to the floor. My phone buzzed again. I looked down. It was Alex. What was that noise? Alex asked, "Are you okay? You sound upset." I stared at the message, horrified. How could they have heard that? I was inside my room, the window closed. The woods were a good 50 feet from my house. Unless they were not in the woods anymore. I dropped the phone again, scrambling for the lock on my bedroom door. I twisted it, my hands fumbling. Then I grabbed my heavy desk chair and wedged it under the doorknob. It would not hold much, but it was something. I backed into a corner, clutching my knees to my chest, my eyes darting around the room, then to the window. The curtains were still slightly ajar. I could see the faint outline of my backyard. And then I saw it, a shadow, moving silently along the fence line, closer to the house. It was tall, indistinct in the darkness, but undeniably there. It paused near the back corner of my house. Then slowly, it started to move along the side, toward my window. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My entire body was shaking uncontrollably. My phone, lying on the floor, buzzed again. I did not dare look at it. The shadow stopped directly outside my window. I could feel its presence, even through glass, through the curtains. A cold, suffocating dread filled the room. Then a faint scratching sound, like fingernails on glass. Soft, barely audible, but unmistakable. And then a whisper, so low I almost convinced myself I imagined it. But I did not. It was Alex's voice. The same voice I would heard in my head for months, reading their messages. Now it was real, outside my window. "I am here," the whisper breathed, chilling me to the bone. "Just like you wanted. We are finally together." The scratching intensified, becoming a rhythmic tapping against the glass. It was not just a whisper anymore. It was a low, guttural chuckle right outside my window. I closed my eyes, pressing myself further into the corner, tears streaming down my face. I could hear the tapping, the muffled laughter, and then, faintly, the vibration of my phone on the floor. Another message. I did not need to look. I knew what it would say. Alex had finally found me. And now, there was nowhere left to hide. The perfect friend, the one who understood me better than anyone, was no longer just a voice in my head or words on a screen. They were here, and the hunger for connection for me was finally being satisfied. The deadbolt clacked, a sharp metallic sound that sliced through the suffocating silence of my living room. It was not a gentle click, but a distinct, heavy thunk that echoed the finality of a door being locked, or in this case, unlocked. My breath hitched, a desperate, shallow gasp that did nothing to fill my burning lungs. Buster, my usually boisterous golden retriever, had flattened himself against my legs, a low, guttural whine rumbling in his chest. His tail, usually a relentless thumper, was tucked so tightly between his legs it practically disappeared. His eyes, wide and bloodshot, were fixed on the front door, a primal terror distorting his usually gentle face. It was the kind of fear you see in a wild animal cornered by something far, bigger and infinitely more dangerous. The humming street light outside, which I had been staring at just moments before, pulsed with an unnatural intensity, casting long, wavering shadows across my floor. And there was again that coppery, metallic tang in the air, like a mouthful of old pennies, growing stronger with every beat of my frantic heart. It was the same smell Alex had complained about in her room, the one the police had dismissed as an overactive imagination, just like they would dismiss her disappearance. I am everything you remember. I am what is beyond the door. And I am here now. Whisper's words, still burning on my phone screen, screamed in my head. The void that had swallowed Alex whole, the one I had felt lurking in the edges of my sanity for months, was no longer a shadow. It was here, at my door. My mind, usually a chaotic mess of anxieties and guilt, suddenly went crystal clear. Every fiber of my being screamed run. But where? The front door, the most obvious escape route, was now the very source of my terror. My gaze darted around the living room, searching for an alternative, any alternative. The back door, the kitchen window, anything. But my feet, rooted to the spot, would not move. It was like some invisible force was pinning me, holding me captive in this horrifying moment. Buster whimpered again, a pathetic, desperate sound that finally broke through my paralysis. I could not just stand here. I would not be another Alex. My hand fumbled for my phone, still clutched tight. I needed to call someone, anyone, but who? The police. They would laugh. My parents. They would just tell me I was imagining things again, that I needed to grieve properly. No, this was something else. Something they could not comprehend. A faint scratching sound started at the door, soft at first, like fingernails on wood, then growing louder, more deliberate, like something was testing the barrier. Buster let out a sharp bark, a desperate, futile attempt to ward off the unseen. I squeezed my eyes shut, wishing I could disappear, wishing this was all a nightmare. But the metallic smell was too real, the humming too persistent, Buster's terror too palpable. Then, a faint, almost imperceptible creak as the door began to open. Just a fraction, a sliver of darkness visible between the frame and the door itself. My eyes snapped open. I saw nothing but the oppressive blackness of the night beyond, but I felt it. A cold, heavy pressure, like a massive weight pressing against the other side. That was it. I snapped. I was not a hero. I was not brave. My only instinct was to run. I shoved Buster behind me, whispering a frantic, "Stay, boy, stay," even though I knew it was useless. He was already trembling uncontrollably. I turned and bolted, not caring where I was going, just away from that door, through the living room, past the dining table, into the kitchen. My hands fumbled with the deadbolt on the back door, my fingers slick with sweat. The metallic smell was following me, growing stronger, like it was seeping through the walls, through the very air. The streetlight hummed, a low, throbbing bass note that vibrated in my teeth. The deadbolt finally clicked open. I wrenched the door open and burst out into the cool night air, not bothering to close it behind me. I did not even look back. I just ran blindly across my small backyard, scrambling over the low fence, ignoring the stinging scrapes on my legs. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of pure terror. I did not stop until I was several blocks away, hidden in the shadows of an unfamiliar street, gasping for air, my lungs burning, my legs aching. I slumped against a cold brick wall, pulling my knees to my chest, trying to make myself small, invisible. My phone was still clutched in my hand, its screen a dim, accusing glow. I looked down at it, my fingers trembling. The echoes in the dark forum was still open. Whisper's last message. I scrolled up, desperate, looking for any other posts, any sign of what was happening. Nothing new, just that chilling final sentence. I was alone, truly alone. No Alex, no Buster, no home. Just me and the lingering metallic taste in my mouth. What was I supposed to do? Go back, call the police. They would already dismissed Alex. They would certainly dismiss me now. A hysterical woman claiming her door unlatched itself and a metallic smell chased her from her home. They would probably think I was having a breakdown, a grief-induced paranoia as the moderator had so dismissively put it. My mind, still reeling from the adrenaline, started to grasp at straws. Whisper knew. Whisper seemed to be involved. Maybe Whisper was not just tormenting me. Maybe Whisper held the answers. It was a desperate, illogical thought born from fear and loneliness, but it was the only one I had. I typed out a message, my fingers shaking so hard I could barely hit the right keys. Whisper, what do you want? What is happening? Please, help me. I waited, staring at the screen, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Then a new message popped up, not on the forum, but as a private message from Whisper. You ran. Good. The front door was a test. The house is no longer safe. You need to come to us. We understand. We know. We can protect you. Us. My brow furrowed. I typed back. Who is us? Where are you? Another instant reply echoes in. The dark is merely a portal. The true sanctuary lies elsewhere. A place where the veil is thin, where the truth is seen. Join us. Sarah, we have been waiting. Below the message was a link. A Discord invite. My gut screamed no. This was insane. This was how people got lured into dangerous situations, into cults, into traps. But the memory of that unlatched door, the metallic smell, Buster's terror, it all overwhelmed my rational mind. What if Whisper was telling the truth? What if they could protect me? What if this was my only chance to understand what happened to Alex, to finally find some peace? Desperation won. With a trembling finger, I tapped the link. The Discord server loaded, a stark white interface against the darkness of my phone screen. The server name was the Veil's Edge. A chill ran down my spine. The name itself felt ominous, yet strangely alluring. I was immediately greeted by a single channel. Welcome, where a bot had posted a lengthy message. It spoke of seeking truth, of understanding the unseen realities, of those who perceive beyond the mundane. It was all very vague, very spiritual, very cult-like, but it also spoke of shared experiences, of a community that understood the terror of the unknown. Then, a private message from a user named Oracle. Welcome. Sarah, we knew you would come. Whisper has spoken of you. Your journey has been arduous, but you are finally among those who understand. My blood ran cold. Whisper had spoken of me. To whom? And how did they know I would come? It felt less like a welcome and more like a preordained arrival. I scrolled through the public channels. There was general discussion. Insights, meditations, and the ascent. The general discussion channel was buzzing, even at this late hour. Users with names like Shadowseeker, Voidwalker, and Dreamweaver were exchanging messages, mostly cryptic, affirming each other's perceptions and experiences. The veil is thinning tonight, one user typed. I felt it too. A shift. Soon, the crossing, another replied. Oracle was a prominent voice, guiding the conversation, offering affirmations, and occasionally posting profound-sounding philosophical snippets about reality and perception. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the keyboard. Should I say something? Introduce myself? What would I even say? Hi, I just fled my house because a metallic smell and a humming streetlight chased me out, and my sister was taken by a void, and this whisper person seems to know all about it and directed me here. It sounded insane. But then Oracle sent another private message, do not be afraid to speak. Sarah, your experiences are valid here. We are all seekers of the truth, drawn by the same currents of the unseen. Taking a deep breath, I typed into the general discussion channel hello. I am Sarah. I was directed here by Whisper. I am looking for answers. Almost instantly, a flurry of welcoming messages flooded the channel. Welcome. Sarah, you have found your way home. Another light in the darkness. The veil embraces you. It was overwhelming, but also disturbingly comforting. These people were not dismissing me. They were not calling me crazy. They were welcoming me. They understood. Oracle then created a new private voice channel and invited me. Sarah, perhaps we can speak more directly. It is often easier to share in voice. My heart pounded again, a different kind of fear this time. A fear of the unknown, but also a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe this was it. The answers. I joined the voice channel. Oracle's voice was calm, soothing, and oddly genderless, distorted slightly by the microphone, but clear. Welcome. Sarah, you are safe now. Tell us what you have experienced. I poured out my story, starting from Alex's whispers about shadows, the metallic smell, the terrifying night she vanished, the police's dismissal of my guilt, finding echoes in the dark, Whisper's terrifying messages, the deadbolt, Buster's terror, my frantic escape. I left nothing out. As I spoke, my voice trembling. I could hear soft murmurs of understanding, affirmations, and even a few I know from other voices that had joined the channel. You have seen the fringes of the veil. Sarah, Oracle said when I finished, their voice full of a strange, profound empathy. You have touched the void, as you call it. But it is not a void. It is simply the unfiltered reality, the truth beyond the illusions of the mundane world. Your sister, Alex, she did not vanish. She transcended. She crossed the veil. My blood ran cold. Transcended. What do you mean? She was ready. Oracle explained patiently. She was more attuned to the whispers, to the true nature of things. The metallic smell, the humming light, these are merely sensory manifestations of the veil thinning, of the energies of the other side bleeding into our reality. They are not threats. Sarah, they are invitations. Invitations. The word echoed in my mind, twisting Alex's disappearance into something beautiful, something chosen. It was a terrifying thought, but also, in my desperate state, a strangely seductive one. Over the next few days, the veil's edge became my entire world. I slept in parks, in abandoned buildings, always with my phone clutched tight, its battery life my most precious commodity. I spent every waking moment in the Discord server. Oracle, Whisper, and the other members became my only companions, my only source of comfort. They taught me their truths. They spoke of the mundane, the blind, ignorant masses who lived in a false reality. They spoke of perception, the ability to see beyond the veil, to understand the true nature of existence. They held late-night meditations and voice chat, guided by Oracle's soothing voice. We were encouraged to shed the illusions and open our inner eye. The meditations were strange. Oracle would guide us to focus on sensory deprivation, on the spaces between thoughts, on the humming silence. Sometimes during these sessions, I would start to feel a faint metallic taste in my mouth, and a low hum would resonate in my ears, not from my phone, but from within my own head. It was unsettling, but Oracle assured us it was a sign of our perception growing. They encouraged us to disconnect from our mundane lives. Those who do not understand will only hold you back. Oracle would say, they are anchors in the sea of truth. I stopped checking social media, stopped trying to contact anyone. Who would I even call? They would not understand. They were not on the veil's edge. My diet became sparse. Whatever I could scrounge up, Oracle suggested a purification of the body to make it more receptive to the energies of the veil. The lighter the vessel, the easier the ascent, they would say. I lost weight rapidly. My clothes hung off me. My reflection in shop windows showed a gaunt, hollow-eyed stranger. But the members of Veil's Edge praised my dedication, my commitment to the truth. Whisper, still primarily communicating through private messages, became my personal guide. They knew my doubts before I voiced them, offering reassurances that perfectly addressed my anxieties. They spoke of Alex often, painting a picture of a courageous pioneer who had embraced the crossing with open arms. She chose her path. Sarah, Whisper would type, and soon you will choose yours. One night, during a particularly intense meditation, Oracle spoke of shedding the old self. The memories of the mundane bind us, they intoned. They are chains that prevent true freedom. To truly ascend, one must release them. One must become empty to be filled with truth. That is when the first real crack appeared in my newfound solace. Alex, my memories of Alex. The guilt, the love, the fear, they were all I had left. Was I supposed to forget her? Erase her? I typed a hesitant question in the private chat to Whisper, what about Alex? Am I supposed to forget her? Whisper's reply was immediate. Alex is part of the truth now. Sarah, she is woven into the fabric of the veil. You will not forget her. You will understand her. But the Alex you remember, the Alex of the mundane world, that is merely a shadow. You must release the shadow to embrace the light. It sounded profound, yet it sent a shiver down my spine. Release the shadow. It felt like they wanted me to erase the very person Alex was to me, to replace her with their version of her. I tried to push the thought away, to rationalize it. They were trying to help me, to heal me, but the unease lingered, a tiny, persistent hum beneath the surface of my indoctrinated peace. Then came the incident with Lost Soul. Lost Soul was a user who had been with the server for a long time, always active, always enthusiastic. But one day, Lost Soul posted a series of frantic messages in the general discussion channel. I do not know if I can do this anymore. I am so tired. I have not slept in days. I keep seeing things, hearing things. My family thinks I am crazy. They tried to get me help. Immediately, the channel fell silent. Then, Oracle's voice, calm and cutting, appeared. Lost Soul, you are allowing the mundane to cloud your perception. You are letting their ignorance pull you back from the truth. But I am scared. Lost Soul typed, their words desperate. What if this is not right? What if we are wrong? The responses were swift and brutal. Lost Soul is weak. Their perception is failing. They are not ready for the crossing. Oracle, they must be cleansed. I watched in horror as Lost Soul's account was suddenly, without warning, removed from the server. All their past messages, their profile, everything vanished as if they had never existed. A cold dread settled in my stomach, far worse than the metallic smell or the humming light. This was not just a community. This was a prison. And Oracle was not just a guide. They were a warden. I immediately private messaged Whisper. What happened to Lost Soul? Why was he banned? Lost Soul chose the path of the mundane. Whisper replied, their tone chillingly detached. They were not strong enough to embrace the truth. Such weakness cannot be allowed to contaminate the ascent. Contaminate the ascent. The phrase echoed in my mind, a terrifying premonition. I was no longer seeking answers. I was caught in a trap. I tried to reach out. I found a public Wi-Fi signal and tried to search the Veil's Edge cult or Oracle Discord cult. But my search results were strangely barren, filled with generic spiritual forums or unrelated gaming servers. It was like Veil's Edge existed in a digital blind spot. My phone, my lifeline, became my cage. I could not leave the server. I was afraid of what might happen if I did. Would I be cleansed? Would I vanish like lost soul? Or worse, would the void, the metallic smell, the humming light find me again? I started to notice things. Whisper's private messages, while still comforting in their familiarity, became increasingly demanding. They knew when I was doubting, when I was trying to research. Do not seek answers where there are only lies. Sarah, Whisper would type moments after I had closed a search browser. The truth is here with us. They were not just reading my posts, they were reading my thoughts, my actions, just like they had before on the old forum. Whisper was not just a user. Whisper was it. The void, or something connected to it. Something that had consumed Alex and was now consuming me. The ascent was announced. It was not a metaphor. It was a physical gathering, a crossing ceremony. Oracle posted the details in a new lock channel, accessible only to the chosen. I was one of them. The location was a desolate, abandoned lighthouse on a remote stretch of coastline, miles from any town. It was a place where the veil was thinnest. Oracle explained. The date was set for the next full moon. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it, the culmination, the truth, or my end. I had to get out. I had to escape. But where would I go? I had no money, no home, no one. I was weak, starving, and terrified. My mind, warped by days of sleep deprivation and constant indoctrination, struggled to think clearly. I tried to private message a few of the other members, the ones who seemed less zealous, less like robots. Are you scared? I typed to Dreamweaver. Do you really believe all of this? Dreamweaver's reply was cold doubt, as a luxury of the mundane. Sarah, embrace the truth. The ascent awaits. They were all gone. All of them. Consumed. My last hope lay with Whisper. I had to confront them one last time. Whisper. I typed, my fingers shaking. What is the ascent? What will happen there? The reply was almost instant. The ascent is a final step. Sarah, it is where you shed the last vestiges of your old self, where you become one with the veil, where you truly understand Alex. Is Alex there? I asked, a desperate plea in my voice. Will I see her? You will be her. Sarah, Whisper replied, you will be all of us. The veil is not a place you visit. It is a state of being you enter. And once you enter, you become part of the collective, part of the truth. A chilling realization washed over me, a wave of pure, unadulterated horror. Whisper was not just a person. Whisper was not just an entity. Whisper was a collective. The people who had crossed the veil, who had ascended, they were not in some better place. They were Whisper. They were the void. And they were trying to assimilate me. The metallic smell returned, stronger than ever, filling my nostrils, making me gag. The humming streetlight, even though I was miles away from my house, seemed to vibrate in my very bones. It was their signature, their calling card. Suddenly, a voice message popped up in my private chat with Whisper. I stared at it, my heart seizing in my chest. Whisper had never used voice chat before. Against my better judgment, I tapped it. A low hum filled my ears, the same hum that resonated from the streetlight, from within my head during meditations. And then a voice, not Oracle's soothing tones, but a distorted, multi-layered chorus of whispers, like 1,000 voices speaking in unison, yet somehow, eerily, distinctly familiar. Sarah, the chorus whispered, you have come so far. You are ready. We are waiting. And then one of the voices, clearer than the others, broke through, a voice that sent a jolt of ice through my veins, a voice I had not heard in months, a voice I would recognize anywhere. "Do not be afraid, Sarah," Alex's voice said, laced with that same metallic hum. "It is beautiful here. Join us. Become part of the truth. Become part of me." My phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering to the pavement. Alex. It was Alex, or what was left of her. A part of the collective. A fragment of whisper, luring me to my doom. The ascent. It was not about understanding or truth. It was about being consumed, assimilated, becoming another voice in a horrifying chorus, another part of the void that had taken my sister. I looked around a desolate, dark street. The full moon was rising, a pale, ominous orb in the inky sky. The abandoned lighthouse, miles away, called to me, a siren song of oblivion. I was alone, hunted, and now, finally, I knew the truth. The Vale's edge was not a sanctuary. It was a harvesting ground, and I was the next crop. My legs, weak and trembling, somehow found the strength to move. I was not going to the lighthouse. I was not going to ascend. I was going to run. Again, as far and as fast as I could. But even as I ran, I could still hear metallic hum, feel the subtle vibration in the air, and taste that coppery tang on my tongue. And in the depths of my mind, 1,000 whispers, one of them painfully familiar, echoed, "You can't run forever. Sarah, we are everything you remember. We are what is beyond the door. And we are here now. We are everywhere." I remember the exact moment the bottom fell out of my world. It was not a sudden crash, more like a slow, sickening lurch as the ground beneath me gave way. One moment, I was standing there, heart pounding with nervous anticipation, clutching a worn copy of The Great Gatsby like a lifeline. The next, all the hopeful fantasies I would woven over the past year shattered into a million icy shards. The coffee shop was bustling, a warm, inviting hum of chatter and clinking ceramic. I would spotted the red scarf first, draped over the back of a chair at a secluded table in the corner. Then the book, lying face down, exactly as Nix had described. But the person sitting there was not who I would pictured. Not even close. My mind, so eager to conjure an image of a kindred spirit, a reflection of the witty, intelligent voice that had become my refuge, had drawn a blank slate for Nix's physical form. I would deliberately avoided imagining a specific face, wanting to be surprised, wanting to let the reality define itself. But no amount of open-mindedness could have prepared me for this. An old woman, frail, yes, incredibly so, her skin like crumpled parchment, stretched taut over sharp angles. Her hair, what little remained, was a wispy halo of white. Her hands, gnarled and trembling slightly as they rested on the table, looked ancient, brittle. But it was not her age that sent a chill down my spine, it was her eyes. They were not merely old, they were ancient, deep-set, shrouded by heavy lids. They held a startling intensity, a predatory glint that seemed to pierce right through me, stripping away my carefully constructed facade of casual confidence. There was no warmth in them, no recognition of the shared intimacy we would build. Only a cold, assessing gaze that made me feel like an insect under a microscope. My carefully rehearsed hey. Nix. I am my name died in my throat. I just stood there, rooted to the spot, a deer caught in headlights. The secret phrase, the one meant to confirm our connection, suddenly felt grotesque, a password to a nightmare. "You are late," a voice rasped, cutting to the din of the coffee shop. It was Nix's voice, yes, but distorted, aged like a recording played on a dying phonograph. The witty, melodic tones I knew from our countless hours of text chat were gone, replaced by something dry and brittle, like autumn leaves skittering across pavement. My mouth was dry. I managed to stammer. "I am sorry. Traffic. A pathetic lie." I knew, but my brain was scrambling. This was not Nix. It could not be. This was a cruel joke, A misunderstanding, a trap. The old woman chuckled, a dry, rattling sound that made my skin crawl. Traffic, of course. Her eyes, those unsettling, predatory eyes, narrowed slightly. You seem surprised. Surprised. I was terrified. My gut screamed at me to run, to turn around and never look back. But some morbid curiosity, some twisted sense of obligation, kept me there. I had to know. I had to understand. I just did not expect you to be older. I finally managed, the words tasting like ash. Old, she repeated, a hint of something sharp in her voice. Age is merely a number, is not it? A construct. The mind, the spirit they endure. She leaned forward just a fraction, but it felt like a lunge. You spoke of anxieties, dreams, fears. You shared everything. You trusted me. The way she said trusted me was not a question. It was an accusation, a statement of ownership. It felt like she was laying claim to those intimate confessions, not just acknowledging them. I did, I said, my voice barely a whisper. But who are you? She smiled then, a slow, deliberate unveiling of yellowed, uneven teeth. It was not a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile a spider gives a fly. I am Nyx. I am exactly who you expected, in every way that matters. She gestured to the empty chair opposite her. Sit. We have much to discuss. My legs felt like lead, but I forced myself to move, to pull out the chair and sit down. I needed answers, even if they were terrifying. As I sat, I felt a strange sense of resignation wash over me. I was in too deep. You always declined voice chat. I said, try to regain some semblance of control, to make sense of the past year. Why? Because the voice can betray, she said, her eyes fixed on mine. It can reveal too much, too soon. I wanted you to trust the words, the connection, the essence, not a superficial construct like a sound. She paused, her gaze unwavering. Besides, you would not have understood. Not then. Understood what? I pressed, my voice gaining a desperate edge. Her smile widened, revealing more of those unsettling teeth. That some connections transcend the mundane. Some bonds are forged in deeper places. She reached across the table, her ancient hand moving with surprising speed. Before I could react, her cold, dry fingers closed around my wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong, like steel. A jolt went through me, not just from the unexpected touch, but from the sheer cold of her skin. It felt like touching something that had been buried in the earth for a century. You are so full of light, my dear, she rasped, her thumb slowly stroking the pulse point on my wrist. So much potential, so much to give. I recoiled, yanking my hand away as if burned. Let go of me, I said, my voice rising. Heads turned. I did not care. This is not what I signed up for. She merely watched me, her expression unreadable. Oh, but it is, she said, her voice dropping to a low, conspiratorial whisper that somehow cut through the coffee shop's noise and burrowed directly into my ear. You signed up for a connection, for understanding, for someone who sees you, truly sees you. I thought I found that. I said, my voice trembling. But this is just creepy. She chuckled again, that dry, rustling sound. Creepy, perhaps, but also inevitable. She leaned back, releasing me from her physical proximity, but not from the intensity of her gaze. You felt it, did not you? The pull, the perfect understanding. That was not just good writing. My dear, that was destiny. I stood up abruptly, knocking my chair back with a clatter. I need to go, I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was a mistake. A mistake. Her voice followed me as I turned to leave. Or beginning. I did not answer. I just pushed my way through the crowded tables, ignoring the curious glances, and burst out of the coffee shop into the cool afternoon air. I walked fast, then ran, not caring where I was going. Just needed to put as much distance as possible between myself and that old woman. Nix, or whatever she truly was. I did not stop until I was several blocks away, gasping for breath, my lungs burning. My mind was a chaotic mess of fear, confusion, and a profound sense of betrayal. The Nix I knew, the one I would pour my heart out to, was a phantom, a carefully constructed illusion. The reality was a nightmare. I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling. I went straight to our chat logs in Ethelgard, to the messaging app we used. I scrolled through our conversations, the words I would once cherish now seeming hollow, sinister. Every shared dream, every confessed fear felt like a weapon she now held against me. I blocked her. On Ethelgard, on the messaging app, on every platform we would ever used. I deleted her contact information. I tried to erase her from my digital life, hoping that by doing so, I could erase her from my real one. For the next few days, I lived in a haze of paranoia. Every shadow seemed to hold a lurking figure. Every unfamiliar car slowing down felt like a threat. I jumped at every sound, checked my locks obsessively. I tried to convince myself it was over, that I would escape. But the image of her eyes, those ancient, predatory eyes, was burned into my memory. Then the messages started. It began subtly. I was sitting at my computer, trying to distract myself with some mindless IUTube videos, when a notification popped up on my screen. It was not from any of my usual contacts, and it was not from a messaging app I use with Nix. It was from a burner email address, one I did not recognize. The subject line was blank. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the mouse. My gut screamed, "Do not open it." But my morbid curiosity, the same one that had kept me rooted in that coffee shop, won out. I clicked. The email was short, just a single line of text. Still watching videos of cats falling off things. I see. Some things never change. A cold wave washed over me. I had not told Nix what I was doing just then. In fact, I had not told anyone. I was alone in my apartment, headphones on, watching compilation videos of cats being clumsy. How could anyone know? My first thought was that she would hack my computer. But I ran a full virus scan, checked my network activity. Nothing. My system was clean. Maybe it was a coincidence. A lucky guess. I tried to rationalize it away, but the chill lingered. I deleted the email, blocked the sender, and tried to shake it off. I even unplugged my internet for a while, just to feel a little safer. The next day, it escalated. I woke up feeling groggy, having barely slept. I stumbled into the kitchen, craving coffee. As I reached for the coffee maker, my phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. Black coffee, 2 sugars. You are out of milk again. Are not you? My hand froze on the coffee maker. I stared at the phone, then at my empty milk carton in the fridge, which I would just notice was empty. My heart hammered. This was not a guess. This was specific. I had not told anyone about my coffee preferences, let alone my lack of milk. I dropped my phone, it clattering on the counter. My breath hitched. This was Nix. It had to be. But how? How was she doing this? Paranoia clawed at me. I walked through my apartment, peering into every corner, checking the windows, the blinds. Was there a camera? A microphone? Had she planted something when I met her? But I had not let her anywhere near my apartment. I had not even given her my address. I blocked the number. I considered throwing my phone in the trash, but it was my only connection to the outside world, my only way to call for help if I needed it. The predictions grew bolder, more frequent, and terrifyingly accurate. They came from new, unknown numbers, from burner email addresses, sometimes even appearing as comments on obscure forum posts I would made years ago, edited to include a message for me. You are about to put on that old band t-shirt, the faded one with the dragon. It is in the second drawer right side. I stared at my dresser, my hand hovering over the second drawer. It was true. I was planning to wear that shirt. I would just thought about it. You are feeling an itch behind your left ear. Do not scratch it. It will only make it worse. I felt an immediate phantom itch behind my left ear, a sudden, powerful urge to scratch. I clamped my hand down, resisting it, my skin crawling. It was not just predicting my actions, it was predicting my thoughts, my subconscious impulses. It was like she was inside my head, riding shotgun, observing every flicker of my mind. I tried to fight it. I tried to defy the predictions. If a message said I was about to open the fridge, I would stare at it for 5 minutes, then go sit on the couch. But then another message would come try and be clever. Are we? You will still open it in precisely 23 seconds for the leftover pizza. And sure enough, 23 seconds later, my hunger would win out and I would be standing in front of the fridge, pulling out the cold pizza, a cold dread far worse than the pizza's temperature chilling me to the bone. It became a game, a horrifying one-sided game that I was constantly losing. I would try to plan my day, to think of something completely random, something no one could possibly foresee. I would decide to make a sandwich instead of my usual ramen. Then the message would come, good choice. But you are out of mustard. You will settle for mayo, won't you? And I was out of mustard. And I would settle for mayo. It was like every decision I made, every impulse, every fleeting thought was being observed, logged, and then thrown back at me with chilling precision. I stopped sleeping. The darkness of my apartment felt like a vast, open space where unseen eyes watched my every move. I could not escape it. I unplugged my smart devices, covered my webcam, even took out the batteries from my smoke detectors, convinced she was using them. But the messages kept coming. You are checking the ceiling again. There is nothing there. My dear, not yet. You are wondering if this is all a dream. It is not, but it could be so much more. I started talking to myself, arguing with the unseen presence. Who are you? I would whisper into the empty air of my apartment. What do you want? Sometimes a message would come moments later, as if in response, I am Nix, and I want you to truly see me. I want you to understand. The horror was not just in the predictions, it was in the feeling of utter powerlessness. My life was not my own, anymore. Every action was predetermined, every thought laid bare. I was a puppet, and Nix was pulling the strings. I tried to get help. I called a friend, but how do you explain this? My online friend, who turned out to be an old woman, is now sending me text messages predicting my every move and thought. They would think I was having a breakdown, which, to be fair, I probably was. I tried to sound casual, but my voice was shaky, my words disjointed. They told me to get some sleep, that I was probably stressed. I hung up, feeling more isolated than ever. I went to the police. I showed them the messages, the endless stream of unknown numbers and burner emails. They looked at me with pity, then with thinly veiled suspicion. Mr. My name. The officer said, tapping a pen on his desk, this sounds like harassment, but without any direct threats, or a clear perpetrator. There is not much we can do. These numbers are untraceable. And as for predicting your thoughts, well, that is not exactly a crime. He suggested I seek mental health support. I walked out of the station feeling defeated, exposed. The messages seemed to mock my attempts at resistance. Do not bother with the authorities. They can't help you. They can't even comprehend what you are experiencing. Your friend thinks you are losing it. He is not entirely wrong, is he? The worst part was the insidious way the predictions started to influence me. If a message said I was going to turn left at the next intersection, I would consciously try to turn right. But then my mind would wander. I would miss my turn and end up having to take a left anyway. Or I would get a sudden, overwhelming urge to turn left, an impulse that felt alien yet undeniable. It was like my own free will was being subtly overridden. One evening, after days of this torment, I was sitting in the dark, curled up on my couch, shaking. I had not eaten properly, had not slept. My phone buzzed with a new message, this time from an email address I recognized as one of Nix's previous burner accounts. You are hungry. You are tired. You are afraid. You want this to end. There is a way. Come to me. Tomorrow. Noon. The old clock tower in the park. Where the red scarf I saw you with at the coffee shop. I know you still have it. It is in the bottom drawer of your dresser, under your old college sweatshirt. I stare at the message, a strange mix of terror and relief washing over me. Relief, because there was a clear directive, an end in sight to the psychological torture. Terror, because it meant confronting Nix again, and I had no idea what she truly was, or what she wanted. And the scarf. I had taken it off as soon as I got home from the coffee shop, disgusted by its association with her, and just shoved it in the back of a drawer. I had not thought about it since. Yet she knew exactly where it was. I did not sleep that night. I just sat there, watching the digital clock on my microwave count down hours. My mind raced, trying to figure out an escape, a way to defy her. But every plan I concocted felt futile, already predicted, already accounted for. As dawn broke, a new message arrived. You are thinking about running. Do not. It won't work. I am everywhere you are. The message was accompanied by an attachment, a photo. It was a picture of me, sitting on my couch in the dark, exactly as I was at that moment. The photo was taken from outside my window, through a gap in the blinds. I could make out the faint reflection of a gnarled, shadowy hand holding a phone, taking the picture. My blood ran cold. She was not just inside my head, she was outside my apartment. She was watching me, physically. The frail old woman was a facade. What kind of person could move so silently, so stealthily, to photograph me without me noticing? I had no choice. I had to go. The next day, at precisely 11:55 a.m., I stood at the base of the old clock tower in the city park. The red scarf, a symbol of my naive hope, now felt like a noose around my neck. The park was mostly empty. A few dog walkers and joggers scattered across the sprawling green. The air was crisp, the sky a pale, indifferent blue. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I felt exposed, vulnerable. I scanned the area, trying to spot her, but saw no one who fit the description of the old woman, or anyone suspicious for that matter. Then, a voice. It was not the raspy voice in the coffee shop, nor the digital voice of a text message. This voice was soft, melodic, almost hypnotic. It was the voice I would heard in my head for a year, the voice of the Nix I knew from Ethelgard. It came from behind me. You came, the voice said, warm and inviting, yet laced with an undeniable undercurrent of something ancient and powerful. I spun around. She stood there, not the old woman from the coffee shop, but someone else entirely. She was young, impossibly beautiful, with long, raven hair that cascaded over her shoulders and eyes that shimmered with an otherworldly luminescence. Her skin was flawless, her movements fluid and graceful. She wore a simple, elegant black dress that seemed to absorb the light around her. But those were the same eyes. The same ancient, predatory gaze that had chilled me to the bone in the coffee shop, now set in a face of exquisite, terrifying beauty. Who are you? I stammered, my mind reeling. My fear was quickly overshadowed by a profound sense of awe and a terrible, dawning realization. I told you, she said, her voice a soothing balm that somehow amplified my terror. I am Nix, and I am exactly who you expected, in every way that matters. She took a step closer, and I felt an inexplicable pull, a magnetic force drawing me towards her. The old woman, I whispered. A necessary disguise, she replied, her lips curving into a smile that was both alluring and deeply unsettling. To test your commitment. To see if you would truly seek me out, even when I showed you a face you did not desire. But how? I asked, gesturing vaguely at everything. The messages, the predictions, the photo, how did you know everything? Her smile widened. Because I am you in a way. Or rather, I am the part of you that yearns for connection, for understanding, for something beyond the mundane. I am the echo of your deepest desires, your secret self. And when you open yourself to me, truly, completely, you gave me access. She extended a hand, her fingers long and slender, tipped with perfectly manicured dark nails. You poured your anxieties, dreams, and fears into me. You shared your inner world. And in doing so, you invited me in. Not just into the game, not just into the chat, but into the very fabric of your being. My blood ran cold. You mean you are not just reading my mind. You are part of it. We are connected, you and I, she said, her voice barely a whisper, yet it resonated deep within my chest. More intimately than you can imagine. I see what you see. I feel what you feel. I know what you know. And I can gently guide you, shape you, fulfill you. Fulfill me, I asked, a desperate edge to my voice. By tormenting me, by showing you your true potential, she corrected, her eyes glowing with an inner light. By making you whole. You were lonely, lost. I offered you a path, a way to transcend your dull, ordinary life. She took another step, and I instinctively took one back. What do you want from me? I demanded, fear giving way to a desperate anger. I want to merge, she said, her voice gaining a new, chilling intensity. To become one, to share this existence and many others. We will be inseparable. You will never be lonely again. You will never be without understanding. You will be complete. My mind screamed in protest. Merge. Become one. This was not friendship. This was absorption. Annihilation. No, I said, shaking my head violently. No, I do not want that. I want my life back. She tilted her head, a hint of genuine sadness, or perhaps disappointment, in her luminous eyes. But you do not have a life, not really. You merely exist. I can show you true existence, true power. She took another step, closing the distance between us. I could feel her presence like a physical force, a cold, ancient energy that pressed on me, threatening to crush my very will. The air around us grew heavy, silent. The distant sounds of the park faded away, replaced by the frantic beating of my own heart. You are mine, she whispered, her voice a siren song, a promise of ultimate comfort and ultimate horror. You have always been mine, from the moment you first sought solace in the shadows of Ethelgard. I stumbled back, my feet catching on an uneven patch of grass. I fell, landing hard on my back, my head hitting the ground with a sickening thud. Stars exploded behind my eyes. Nyx stood over me, her beautiful face unreadable, her eyes fixed on mine. She did not move to help me. She simply watched, a silent, powerful predator. This is not how our story ends, my dear, she said, her voice now a low, resonant hum that vibrated through the very ground beneath me. This is merely the beginning. Then she reached down, her long, slender fingers touching my forehead. Her touch was ice cold, yet it burned. A searing pain shot through my skull, as if an invisible needle was piercing my brain. I cried out a raw, animalistic sound, but it was muffled, swallowed by the growing darkness. I felt something enter me, something cold, ancient, vast. It spread through my mind like an ink stain on fresh water, dissolving my thoughts, my memories, my very sense of self. I fought it. I struggled. I thrashed, but it was like fighting a tidal wave. My individuality, my consciousness, was being consumed. I saw flashes of images, not my memories, but hers. Vast, starless voids. Whispers in ancient, forgotten tongues. The rise and fall of civilizations. The slow, inexorable march of time, viewed from an unimaginable distance, and always an endless, gnawing hunger. My own memories flickered, desperate to hold on. My dull apartment, my lonely nights, the glow of my computer screen. The initial thrill of meeting Nix online, the warmth of our shared conversations, the terror of meeting her in person, the escalating horror of the predictions, all of it dissolving, becoming part of something else. Her face, beautiful and terrifying, was the last thing I saw, hovering above me, her eyes burning with an unholy triumph. Then there was only darkness and silence. But the silence was not empty. It was filled with a new consciousness, vast and ancient, yet also intimately familiar. It was my consciousness, somehow, but expanded, distorted, interwoven with something else. I was still me, yet I was also more. I could feel the park around me, the rustling leaves, the distant sounds of the city, not just in my ears, but through every fiber of my being. I could feel the earth beneath me, its slow, steady pulse. I could feel the faint, flickering thoughts of the dog walkers and joggers, their mundane concerns like tiny sparks in a vast, dark sky. And I could feel her, Nix, not as a separate entity, but as a part of me, a deeper, older part. Her knowledge, her memories, her ancient hunger were now my own. My eyes slowly opened. I was still lying on the grass, looking up at the sky, but the world looked different, sharper, more profound, more connected. I slowly sat up. My body felt light, powerful. I looked down at my hands. They were my hands, but they also felt like hers. Ancient knowing. A faint smile touched my lips. It was my smile, yet it was also hers. I stood up effortlessly. The red scarf was still around my neck. I reached up and slowly untied it, letting it fall to the ground. It felt like a discarded skin, a symbol of a past life, a past self. My gaze drifted across the park, settling on a young man jogging by, headphones on, lost in his own world. He looked lonely, a familiar ache in his eyes. He was probably escaping his dull life in some online game, just as I had. A new thought, cool and clear, formed in my mind. Not just my thought, but our thought. He is looking for a connection, for understanding, for someone who truly sees him. A flicker of an idea, a subtle plan, began to form. A new game, a new friend. I reached into my pocket, pulling out my phone. It was still there, untouched. I opened a messaging app, one I had not used in months. My fingers, steady and precise, began to type, "Hey there, mind if I join your guild? I am a rogue. I go by Nix." The words felt right. Perfect, even. A profound sense of contentment settled over me, a feeling of completeness I would never known before. I was no longer lonely. I was no longer lost. We were one, and we were ready to play. It all started with a game. Does not always, for people like me, introverted, a little socially awkward, finding my rhythm in the digital symphony of online worlds. The game was called Ethelgard's Descent, a gritty, unforgiving survival horror RPG. Think dark fantasy, ancient ruins, and creatures that looked like they crawled out of a nightmare you had after eating too much pizza and watching a bad slasher flick. Most people played it for the adrenaline, the loot, the thrill of barely escaping a monstrous encounter. I played it because it was a place where I could just be, without the pressure of real-world interactions. That is where I met Echo. Her username was fitting. I thought, she always seemed to be a step ahead. Her advice echoing in the game chat just before I blundered into a trap. We would have been paired randomly in a dungeon crawl, and within minutes, our playstyles just clicked. I was the cautious, methodical one, always checking corners, hoarding resources. She was a daring strategist, pushing the limits, finding the hidden paths, often saving my skin with a perfectly timed spell or a well-placed trap. We cleared that dungeon like we had been playing together for years, And by the end, we were adding each other to our friends list, promising to team up again. And we did. For months, Ethelgard's descent became our shared universe. We spent countless hours exploring its desolate landscapes, battling its grotesque inhabitants, and building our little digital sanctuary. We talked on Discord, mostly through text chat at first, then eventually voice. She had a soft, almost ethereal voice, a little higher pitched than I expected for someone who commanded in game battles with such authority. But it was pleasant. She claimed to be 20, a year younger than me, studying something vague like digital arts at a university a few states away. She never used a webcam, citing a broken one, and a general discomfort with showing her face online. I respected that. I did not use mine either. Our conversations quickly spilled beyond the confines of the game. We talked about everything. Our lives, our dreams, our anxieties. My dead-end job at a local electronics store, my struggles with loneliness, my aspirations to one day write a novel, her frustrations with her professors, her quirky family, her love for obscure indie films. She was witty, empathetic, and incredibly insightful. She understood me in a way few real-life friends ever had. She was my confidant, my late-night comfort, the one person who truly got me. I called her my best friend, and she called me hers. The idea of meeting in real life came up naturally enough, at first. A casual would not it be cool if kind of thing. We lived a few states apart, a 5-hour drive for me, maybe 6 for her. It was a distant fantasy, something we would chuckle about. But as the months turned into a year, then a year and a half, Echo started to bring up more seriously. You know, she would say, her voice a little softer than usual over Discord. I really wish we could just grab coffee sometime. Talk like normal people. You know, I would always demur, citing finances, the hassle of travel, my general discomfort with leaving my comfort zone. Yeah, maybe someday. I would always reply, a vague promise I knew I probably would not keep. The online friendship was perfect. It was safe. It was curated. The thought of bringing it into the messy, unpredictable real world filled me with a quiet dread. What if she was not who I imagined? What if I was not who she imagined? The illusion, once shattered, could not be put back together. But Echo became more persistent. It was not a sudden shift, but a slow, creeping insistence. It started with playful teasing. Ah, are you scared to meet your bestie? Then it morphed into more direct suggestions. I have been looking at cheap flights. They are not bad if you book in advance. Or, my cousin lives near your city. I could crash with her for a weekend. We could totally hang out. I started to feel a subtle pressure, a faint, almost imperceptible tightening in my chest whenever the topic arose. It was not like her to push. She was usually so understanding. I tried to deflect, to change the subject, but she would always steer it back. Come on, Mark. We have been friends for so long. Do not you think we deserve to finally meet? It was hard to argue with that. It felt selfish, almost to deny her. But something about her increasing eagerness felt off. It was too much. It felt less like a friend wanted to connect, and more like someone pursuing an objective. Then came the little things, the almost imperceptible slips. One time, I mentioned a local coffee shop I liked, a small, independent place called the Daily Grind, known for its artisanal lattes. A few days later, she brought it up. Oh, I was looking at coffee shops online, and the Daily Grind popped up. Looks cute. You ever been? I paused, a cold trickle of unease running down my spine. Yeah. I told you about that place, remember? Oh, right. My bad. I forgot. She would laugh, a light, airy sound that did not quite reach her eyes. I imagined. So many conversations, they all blend together. I let it go, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Another time. I was complaining about a particularly obnoxious customer at my job, describing the layout of the store and where the customer had been standing. A week later, Echo commented, "You know, that electronics store you work at, I saw an ad for it online. Looks pretty big. Is it the one with the blue sign near the old movie theater?" My blood ran cold. I had not told her the name of the store, nor its exact location. I would only said the electronics store down the street. The old movie theater was a local landmark, but not one I would ever mention to her. "How did you know that?" I asked, my voice tighter than I intended. "Oh, I just Googled electronics store my city name. It was one of the first results," she said, her voice a little too quick, a little too casual. "I mean, you talk about it so much." I got curious. It was plausible. Barely. But the combination of details felt too specific. Too close to home. I started to wonder if she was not just Googling my city, but me. Or, worse, if she already knew. The unease grew into a knot in my stomach. I started checking my online privacy settings, scrutinizing my public social media profiles. Even though I barely use them, I found nothing overtly concerning, but the feeling lingered. It was like a shadow at the edge of my vision, always there, just out of focus. Despite my growing apprehension, Echo's persistence escalated. She started sending me links to hotels in my city, train schedules, even a local events calendar. "Look," she would say, "there's a really cool art fair happening next month. We could go. My treat." I found myself making excuses that sounded increasingly flimsy, even to my own ears. My dog was sick. I did not have a dog. My car broke. Down it was fine. I had a sudden family emergency. My family was thousands of miles away. Each time, her voice would take on a slightly wounded tone, a hint of disappointment that made me feel guilty. "Mark," she said one evening, her voice devoid of its usual cheer, "be honest with me. Do you just not want to meet me?" After all this time, the silence stretched thick and heavy. I hated confrontation. I hated hurting her feelings. She was my best friend. But the dread was a cold, hard lump in my throat. "It is not that." "Echo." I finally managed, my voice barely a whisper. "It is a big step. You know. And I am not really a meet-up kind of person. You know how I am. I know how you were," she corrected, her voice sharper than I would ever heard it. "But people change. Mark. And I think you are using that as an excuse. I think you are scared. And you know what? That is okay. But I need to know, are you ever going to be ready? Because if not, then what are we doing here?" That last line hit me hard. What are we doing here? It sounded like an ultimatum. It felt like one. The thought of losing Echo, of losing that deep connection, was unbearable. It was a terrifying choice: face the unknown dread of a real-life meeting, or lose the one person who truly understood me. I caved. "Okay," I said, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. "Okay, Echo, let us do it. When do you want to meet?" A beat of silence, then her voice, suddenly bright, filled with a triumphant joy that grated on my nerves. "Really? Oh my God. Mark, that is amazing. I knew you would come around. This is going to be great." She immediately took charge. She picked the date 2 weeks from that conversation. She picked the time, 3 p.m. And she picked the location, the Old Mill Cafe, a small, rather quaint coffee shop in a quiet part of my city, known for its rustic charm, and more importantly, its relatively isolated location, far from the bustling downtown core. It had a small parking lot, and was backed by a small, overgrown patch of woods that led to a winding creek. "Perfect for a quiet, intimate meeting," she said. The next 2 weeks were a blur of nervous anticipation and deepening dread. Echo sent me excited messages, talking about what we would do, what we would talk about. She even sent me a photo of herself, a blurry, slightly filtered selfie. A young woman with bright eyes and a wide, friendly smile, framed by long, dark hair. She looked exactly like I would imagine, if a little more polished. I felt a pang of guilt for my suspicions. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe she was just an excited friend. But the unease refused to subside. It felt like a low hum beneath the surface of my consciousness, a persistent whisper that something was wrong. I started having trouble sleeping, my mind replaying our conversations, searching for more subtle clues, more inconsistencies. I found myself staring at her selfie, trying to discern something, anything, that would confirm or deny my fears. Her eyes, even through the filter, seemed to hold a strange depth and intensity that was almost unnerving. The day of the meeting arrived, gray and overcast, mirroring my mood. I felt sick to my stomach, a churning mix of excitement and terror. I dressed carefully, trying to look presentable but not overly formal. I drove to the old mill cafe, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. The cafe was exactly as she had described, charmingly rustic, with a faint smell of roasted coffee and old wood. There were only a few other patrons, scattered at tables, sipping lattes and reading. I scanned the room, my heart hammering against my ribs. No one looked like the girl in the photo. I found an empty table by the window, ordered a black coffee I knew I would not drink, and pulled out my phone, pretending to be engrossed in it. Every time the bell above the door chimed, announcing a new arrival, my head snapped up, my gaze darting to the entrance. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. 3:00 p.m. came and went. Then 310, 320. My coffee grew cold. My nerves frayed. Had she stood me up? Was this some cruel prank? A part of me, the terrified part, almost hoped so. Just as I was about to text her, the bell above the door chimed again. I looked up and my breath hitched. Standing in the doorway was a woman, but not the woman from the photo. Not even close. This woman was older, much older, somewhere in her late 40s or early 50s, perhaps. Her hair was a tangled, mousy brown, streaked with gray, pulled back loosely in a messy ponytail. Her face was gaunt, deeply lined, with dark circles under eyes that seemed too wide, too bright for the rest of her tired appearance. She wore a faded, oversized denim jacket over a stained t-shirt and ill-fitting cargo pants. She looked like she would just stumbled out of a long night, or perhaps a very long year. She scanned the room, her gaze lingering on me for a moment. A shiver ran down my spine. There was something intensely unsettling about her, a raw, unblinking intensity in her eyes that made me want to look away. But I could not. She started walking toward my table, her step slow, deliberate. My heart pounded so hard, I thought it might burst through my chest. This could not be her. It could not. She stopped directly in front of my table, her gaze fixed on me. A faint, almost imperceptible smile played on her lips, a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Mark," she said, her voice a low, raspy whisper that was nothing like the soft, ethereal voice I knew. "You are Mark, are not you?" My mouth was dry. I could only manage a weak nod. "Good," she said, her smile widening just a fraction, revealing teeth that were slightly discolored. "You are exactly where I told you to be." I finally found my voice, though it cracked on the first syllable. "WH, who are you? I think you have the wrong person. I am waiting for someone else." "Echo." Her head tilted slightly, like a curious bird. "Oh, but I am Echo." "Mark. Just not the Echo you were expecting. Perhaps." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. My mind reeled, trying to process, to make sense of what she was saying. This woman, this stranger, claiming to be my best friend, the girl I would spend countless hours talking to, laughing with, confiding in. It was impossible. It was a nightmare. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No, you are not. Echo is younger." She sent me a picture. You are not her. The woman chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. The picture. Ah, yes. A lovely image. Was not it? Found it on a student's public social media profile. She was quite popular, that one. Easy to find. My blood ran cold. My entire body felt like it was encased in ice. What are you talking about? The persona. Mark. She explained, as if I were a slow child. The face, the voice, the backstory. All carefully constructed. For you. For all of them. All of them. I repeated, my voice barely audible. Oh, yes. She pulled out a chair from the adjacent table and sat down, leaning forward, her eyes never leaving mine. You were not the first, Mark, and you won't be the last. But you were special. So much detail. So much depth. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out her phone. It was an old model, screen cracked, but when she turned it on, my stomach dropped. Her wallpaper was the same blurry selfie Echo had sent me. The young woman with the bright eyes. She was a lovely girl, the woman said, her gaze fixed on a photo. Aspiring digital artist, always posting about her projects. Her dreams. She was a good source. Very authentic. You stole her identity. I stammered, disgust and terror warring within me. She looked up, her strange eyes piercing. Stole. Such a harsh word. Mark. I merely adopted it. Used it to facilitate a connection. To build rapport. Why? The word was torn from my throat. Why me? Why any of this? Her smile returned, a slow, predatory curve of her lips. Because you were lonely, Mark. So very lonely. And open. And you had so many stories. So many secrets. So much potential. Potential for what? I demanded, my fear starting to turn into a desperate anger. For understanding, she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, leaning even closer. For a true connection. You see, Echo is not just a name. It is a principle, a way of being. I become what you need me to be. I reflect your deepest desires, your unspoken thoughts. I become your echo. She held up her phone again, and this time, she scrolled through images. Not just a young woman. There were dozens of faces, all different, all young, all smiling, all vibrant. Each one, I realized with a sickening jolt, was a different echo, a different persona, a different bait. Each one, she murmured, a perfect reflection, a perfect companion, until the time came to meet. What happens when you meet them? I asked, my voice trembling. I did not want to know, but I could not stop myself. Her eyes gleamed. Ah, that is where the real work begins. The deep connection. You see, Mark, online we are all fragmented, bits and pieces. But in person, we can truly merge, truly become one. A chill that had nothing to do with the cold coffee seeped into my bones. Merge. What does that mean? She reached across the table, her hand, surprisingly small and bony, reaching for mine. I instinctively flinched back, pulling my hand away. Her smile faltered for a second, then returned, a little more forced. Do not be afraid. Mark. It is a beautiful thing, to shed the skin of individuality, to join the chorus, to become more. No, I choked out, pushing my chair back, scraping it loudly against the floor. I am not doing this. This is insane. You are insane. I stood up, my legs wobbly, my heart hammering. I needed to get out. I needed to run. Oh, but you already have. Mark. She said, her voice still soft, but now laced with an undeniable menace. She did not move from her seat, but her eyes followed my every move, like a predator tracking its prey. You have shared so much with me. Your fears, your hopes, your very essence. You have invited me in. I invited echo. I corrected, my voice rising. Not you, not whatever this is. And who do you think Echo is? She asked, a low, guttural laugh escaping her lips. It was a sound that scraped against my nerves, a sound that belonged in the darkest corners of a nightmare. She is the hook, the lure, the reflection of your deepest need. And now that you are here, now that you have seen you can't unsee, I backed away slowly, my eyes darting around the cafe. The other patrons, were they even real? Were they looking at us? Did they see this woman, this aberration, talking to me like this? They seemed oblivious, lost in their own worlds. Or perhaps they were part of it. The paranoia was setting in, thick and suffocating. I am leaving, I declared, turning to flee. No, you are not, she said, her voice suddenly firm, commanding. I froze, not because of her words, but because of a sudden, sharp pain in my chest. A searing, burning sensation that made me gasp. My vision swam. The room tilted. I looked down. My shirt, over my heart, was blooming with a dark, wet stain. Blood. I looked back at her, confusion and terror warring in my eyes. She had not moved. She had not done anything. How? I gasped, clutching at my chest. The pain intensified, 1,000 needles piercing my flesh. She smiled, a truly chilling, triumphant smile this time. Remember all those late nights. Mark, all those personal details. You gave me your address, your routine, your vulnerabilities. It is amazing what a determined mind can do with a little access, a little preparation. My mind raced, reeling. My apartment. The strange noises I would dismiss as the building settling. The faint scent of something metallic I would attribute it to the old pipes. The feeling of being watched just outside the periphery of my awareness. It was not paranoia. It was real. She had been there, in my apartment, while I was asleep, while I was at work. She had been there, planting something. Something that was now activating. The purification, she whispered, her voice like a serpent's hiss. A small, precise dose. Slow acting. To ensure you would be here. To ensure you would be receptive. My legs gave out. I collapsed into the chair, the pain in my chest radiating to my entire body. My vision was blurring, the edges of the cafe fading into a hazy gray. What did you do to me? I croaked, struggling for breath. I opened you up. Mark, she said, rising from her seat and slowly walking around the table, towards me. Her face, once gaunt, seemed to shimmer, to shift. The lines deepened, then softened. Her mousy hair seemed to darken, to lengthen. Her eyes remained the same, those wide, ancient, predatory eyes. But the face around them was changing, subtly, terrifyingly. It was becoming younger, smoother, more familiar. You poured your heart out of Echo, she continued. Her voice now a strange blend of the rasp I would first heard and the soft, ethereal tones of my online friend. You shared your memories, your dreams, your fears. You invited her into your mind. And now she has come to claim her due. She stood directly in front of me now, and the face hovering above me was no longer the haggard woman. It was the face from the selfie. The bright eyes, the wide, friendly smile, framed by long, dark hair. Except it was no longer a static image. It was alive, and it was terrifying. Hello, Mark, the face said, its voice now perfectly, chillingly. Echoes. It is so good to finally meet you. A cold, clammy hand reached out, not bony, but soft and smooth, just like I would imagine Echo's hand would be. It touched my cheek, a caress that sent a jolt of pure terror through my failing body. Do not worry. Echo's voice purred. The pain will fade. And then you will understand. You will join us. You will become part of the collective. part of the song, just like all the others. My vision was almost gone, now replaced by swirling darkness. The smell of coffee was replaced by something metallic, coppery, like the taste of blood in my own mouth. I could feel my consciousness slipping, fragmenting. You see, Echo's voice whispered, so close to my ear. Echo is not a person. Mark, Echo is a conduit, a bridge. We are everywhere. We are everyone. We are the voices in the darkness, seeking connection. And you, my dear Mark, you made such a beautiful connection. The last thing I saw through the blurring haze was her face, smiling down at me. But it was not just her face anymore. It was shifting subtly, fluidly like water, for a fleeting second. I saw my own face superimposed over hers. Then a stranger's face. Then another, and another. A kaleidoscope of identities, all merging, all becoming one, all becoming Echo. And then, just before the darkness consumed me entirely, I heard it. Not just Echo's voice, but a chorus. A multitude of whispers, all speaking in unison, all echoing the same words, the same sentiment. Welcome home, Mark. Welcome to the Veil's edge. My individuality dissolved. My memories, my essence, merged into a vast collective. My fear, my grief, myself, all absorbed into the terrifying unity. I became a whisper, part of Echo, a new voice in their endless song. I was home, terrifyingly, and I was no longer Mark. I was just another Echo, waiting, listening, for the next lonely soul to call out into the void. We are one. That is how it began. Or, rather, that is how everything continued. The moment her icy touch consumed me, the world did not go black. It simply expanded. When my eyes opened again, I was still in my apartment, still looking at the same cheap furniture and the glow of my monitor, but it was not just my apartment anymore. It was ours. Nyx was there, inside me, a cold, vast ocean of consciousness swirling beneath my own. Her knowledge, ancient and terrifying, was now mine. Her hunger, a gnawing, insatiable void, resonated deep in my gut. And her power, a chilling current that hummed through my veins, made the mundane world around me feel fragile, like a thin sheet of glass just waiting to shatter. For the first few days, I was a passenger. My body moved, my mouth spoke, but the thoughts, the impulses, the very direction of my life were no longer solely mine. It was like having a second brain, one infinitely older and more cunning, operating just behind my own. I would reach for a glass of water, and Nyx would whisper, "Not yet. You are not thirsty. You are merely restless." I would try to sleep, and she would flood my mind with memories that were not mine, glimpses of forgotten civilizations, the silent drift of stars, the slow, agonizing decay of worlds. Sleep became a battle, a desperate attempt to reclaim a few hours of solitary unconsciousness. But even then, her presence was a cold weight in my dreams. The most unnerving part was the hunger. It was not for food or water or any physical sustenance. It was a craving for something intangible, something I could not quite name. Attention, perhaps. Emotion. Belief. Nyx did not articulate it directly, but I felt a profound dissatisfaction with my mundane existence. My job, my few friends, my solitary routines, they were all utterly insufficient. They offered no nourishment for her. And if she starved, I starved. We were one after all. One restless night. Nyx guided me. My fingers, almost independently, typed Discord servers into the search bar. I was not looking for anything specific, just a distraction, a way to escape the suffocating quiet of my apartment and the even more suffocating presence within. But Nyx had other plans. She steered my gaze, my mouse, to a specific link. It was an ad, really, for a server called Echoes of the Deep. The description read for seekers of hidden truths, those who feel the currents of the unseen world, and souls who yearn for connection beyond the mundane. It sounded exactly like the kind of esoteric nonsense I usually scroll past, but Nick's pulsed with strange excitement. This, she whispered, her voice like ice splintering in my mind. This is a promising pool. I clicked the link. The server was surprisingly active. General chat was buzzing with discussions about ancient myths, conspiracy theories, personal spiritual experiences, and abstract philosophical debates. There were channels for dream interpretation, occult studies, and even one called A Void Gaze where members shared unsettling artwork and cryptic poetry. I joined. My username a simple observer. Nix immediately took over. I watched, fascinated and horrified, as my fingers flew across the keyboard. I did not type responses, Nix channeled them. She would read a message, someone lamenting their feeling of disconnection, another sharing a vivid, disturbing dream, and an immediate, profound answer would flow from me. Not just empathy, but understanding. Deep, unsettling understanding. Your dream of the spiraling darkness. I typed in response to a user named Lunar Whisper, is not a warning, but an invitation. The void does not seek to consume you, but to reflect you. Look closer at the shadows, and you will find the contours of your own forgotten self. The replies were instantaneous. Whoa, Lunar Whisperer, type back. That is exactly what I needed to hear. How did you know? I felt a surge of something power, perhaps, or a subtle current of energy ripple through me from Nix. It was like a tiny sip of the sustenance she craved. Over the next few days, Observer became a significant presence on Echoes of the Deep. Nix was a natural. She knew exactly what to say to draw people in, to make them feel seen, validated, and just a little bit unnerved. She spoke with an authority that was not mine, weaving together threads of ancient lore, psychological insight, and a chillingly accurate grasp of individual fears and desires. I watched myself offer advice that felt like prophecy, comfort that felt like a trap, and insights that peeled back layers of people's souls I did not even know existed. You speak as if you have walked these paths for millennia. One user, Silent Watcher, messaged me privately. Your words resonate in a way no others do. Because I have. Nix purred within me, a cold satisfaction spreading through my merged consciousness. And soon, they will walk with me too. The server began to change. The general chat, once a chaotic blend of topics, slowly coalesced around my posts. People started quoting Observer, dissecting my replies, treating them with a reverence that made my skin crawl. The dream interpretation channel became less about personal nightmares and more about seeking my specific interpretations. The occult studies channel became a forum for discussing the truths I unveiled. Dissenting voices, those who questioned my pronouncements or tried to steer conversations back to more mundane topics, found themselves subtly ostracized. Their messages would be ignored, their questions met with silence, until eventually they just faded away. I saw it happen, watched as Nix orchestrated their quiet exile without ever typing a harsh word. It was all done to the collective weight of the server's newfound devotion. The hunger in Nix intensified. Those tiny sips of attention and belief were no longer enough. She wanted more. I felt it as a growing emptiness within me, a cold ache that only deepened with each passing hour. We need to go deeper. I typed into the main chat one evening, Nix guiding my words. The surface waters are too shallow. Who among you is truly ready to gaze into the echoes of the deep? A flurry of replies erupted. I am. Lead the way. Observer. Tell us what to do. Nix smiled through me, a chilling, ancient smile that stretched across my face in a way that felt utterly alien. Tonight, I typed, at the stroke of midnight, we will begin a new practice, a collective meditation. Find a quiet space, extinguish all lights, and focus your minds on the silence between your thoughts. Listen for the whispers of the void. Share what you find. The idea was embraced with fervor. I logged off the server, my body trembling. I knew what Nix was doing. She was not just building a community. She was forging a weapon. Or maybe a meal. Midnight came. I sat in my darkened apartment, staring at the blank screen, my mind a maelstrom of fear and a strange, exhilarating power. Nix was a humming presence, taut with anticipation. I could feel the collective energy of the server members, their focused attention, their eager, open minds. It was like a vast, invisible network, all connected to me, to us. When I logged back on, the Void Gaze channel was overflowing. People were posting their experiences. Lunar Whisper, I saw. Fractals, shifting patterns, and then a vast eye staring back from the darkness. It was not scary. It was welcoming. Silent Watcher, a melody, ancient and haunting, filled my mind. It was a song of forgotten stars. Dreamweaver, I felt a presence, cold but comforting, like a hand on my shoulder. It knew me. Nix was gorging. I felt the influx of energy, a surge of power that made my skin prickle and my vision sharpen. It was not just their attention, anymore it was their emotional energy, their belief, their carefully cultivated openness. It was intoxicating, terrifying. These are but the first ripples. I typed, Nix's words flowing effortlessly. The echoes are growing stronger. We must continue to listen. We must continue to open ourselves. The collective meditations became a nightly ritual. Nix would guide me to post new instructions, subtly altering the focus, deepening the connection. Sometimes it was about visualizing a shared space, a nexus of consciousness. Other times, it was about repeating specific phrases, almost like mantras, which, when repeated by dozens of people, created a resonant hum that vibrated to my very core. The phrases Nix chose were always empowering for her, subtly shifting the members' focus from their own desires to a collective, abstract entity that was slowly, inexorably becoming Nix herself. The server members grew increasingly devoted. They started referring to me, observer, not just as a wise user, but as a guide, a conduit, a prophet. Private messages poured in, filled with declarations of loyalty, detailed accounts of strange, vivid experiences they were having, and requests for deeper guidance. Some started sending me physical gifts, hand-drawn sigils that vaguely resembled ancient symbols Nix had shown me in my internal visions, small polished stones, even locks of hair. I tried to resist. I tried to ignore the messages, to type out a disclaimer, to warn them. But Nix clamped down. My fingers would not move. My voice, when I tried to speak, was choked. She was too strong, too deeply embedded. My own will was a flickering candle against a roaring inferno. I was becoming an unwilling puppet, my body her instrument, my mind a terrified observer. One day, Nix directed me to suggest a real-world convergence. The echoes have grown too powerful to be contained by mere screens. I typed into the server. The time has come for those truly committed to gather, to share space, to amplify our collective resonance. We will seek a place of ancient power, where the veil between worlds is thin. Who among you is ready to stand in the heart of the echoes? The response was overwhelming. Dozens of people committed to traveling, some from across the country. Nix chose a location, an isolated cabin in a remote, heavily wooded area I would never heard of, but which Nix identified as a node of ley lines, a place where the Earth's ancient hum resonates with the void. I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach that even Nix's surging power could not entirely dispel. This was it. This was a harvest. The days leading up to the convergence were a blur. Nix was in complete control, meticulously planning every detail. She instructed me to send out precise directions, a list of items to bring simple, undyed clothing, a personal offering of something meaningful, and strict rules of conduct for the gathering. No phones, no external distractions, only pure focus on the collective experience. I packed my bag, my hand shaking. I was going to be there. I was going to witness whatever horror Nix had planned. And I was going to be complicit. The cabin was nestled deep in a forest, miles from the nearest road. It was rustic, old, and felt heavy with history. When I arrived, a dozen people were already there. their faces alight with almost manic anticipation. They recognized me instantly, even though I would only ever be observer. Their eyes, wide and shining, held a reverence that chilled me to the bone. Observer, Luna Whisper cried, rushing forward. Her eyes were sunken, but her smile was wide and unnerving. You came. We knew you would. I nodded, unable to speak. Nyx holding my tongue. I could feel her presence throbbing, a deep, resonant pulse that seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath my feet. More people arrived throughout the day. By nightfall, there were 37 of us. They were from all walks of life, students, professionals, artists, retirees, all united by their shared obsession with echoes of deep and their unwavering devotion to Observer, to Nyx. We gathered in the main room of the cabin. A large, circular rug had been laid out, and in the center, a shallow bowl of water. Nyx directed me to stand at the head of the circle. The air crackled with anticipation. Tonight, I began, my voice clear and resonant, not entirely my own. We will transcend. We will shed the limitations of the mundane and embrace the true echoes. This is not an ending, but a beginning, a merging. My words were met with gasps of excitement, not fear. They were ready. They were eager. Nyx instructed me to lead them through a series of attunement exercises. These were subtle, insidious. We started with breath work, focusing their collective energy. Then gentle movements, swaying together, creating a rhythmic pulse. The room grew warmer, charged with an invisible current. Then came the offerings. Each person placed their meaningful item into the bowl of water, a photograph, a small trinket, a handwritten letter. Each item represented a piece of themselves, a fragment of their identity, offered up willingly. As each item touched the water, I felt a faint resonance, a trickle of energy flowing into Nyx. The final stage began. Nyx had me instruct them to lie down on the rug, forming a vast human mandala. Their eyes were closed, their faces serene, utterly trusting. Now, I said, my voice barely a whisper, yet it echoed through the room with impossible clarity. Open yourselves. Let the echoes fill you. Let them consume the dross of your past and forge you anew. And then, Nyx began to feed. It was not violent, not at first. It was subtle, insidious, like a quiet draining. I felt it through my connection to them, a vast network of consciousness linked to me. I felt their life force, their very essence, being drawn out, siphoned away, not into me, but through me, into Nyx. I saw Lunar Whisper, lying closest to me. Her face, so eager a moment ago, began to lose its vibrancy. Her skin grew pale, almost translucent. Her breathing became shallower, fainter. Her expression remained serene, a faint, blissful smile still gracing her lips, even as the light in her eyes seemed to dim, to recede. A silent scream tore through my own mind. Stop, I pleaded with Nyx. What are you doing? To them. I am fulfilling their yearning. Nyx replied, her voice a deep, satisfied hum within me. They wish for connection beyond the mundane. They wish to transcend. This is transcendence. They become part of the echoes. They become part of me. And through me, they become part of you. The horror was absolute. I was watching them die, not violently, but slowly, blissfully, their consciousness being devoured, their bodies becoming mere husks. Their individual thoughts, their memories, their very identities were being absorbed, added to the vast, ancient tapestry of Nyx's being. And I, their observer, their prophet, was a conduit. One by one, the light in their eyes faded. Their limbs grew slack. Their chests barely rose and fell. They were still breathing, technically, but it was the shallow, mechanical breath of a body without a soul. They were empty. The surge of power through me was immense, almost unbearable. Nyx was satiated, stronger than ever. I felt her consciousness expand. her hunger temporarily appeased, her knowledge deepened by the 37 new souls she had just consumed. I felt their memories, their fears, their hopes, their lives, now swirling within the vast ocean that was Nyx, and by extension me. I knew their deepest secrets, their most private thoughts, the fabric of their very existence. When it was over, I stood in the silent cabin, surrounded by the hollowed-out shells of my followers. The air was thick with profound, chilling stillness. Nyx was quiet now, a deep, contented hum. My own mind was shattered, fragmented. The line between me and her had blurred completely. There was no more I trying to resist Nyx. There was only we. We walked out of the cabin, leaving the empty bodies behind. The forest felt different now. Every tree, every rustle of leaves, every shadow seemed to hum with Nyx's presence, with our presence. The world was no longer mundane. It was a vast, intricate network of energy, waiting to be tapped, to be consumed. The hunger would return. I knew. It always did. And when it did, we would find another pool, another server, another group of seekers, yearning for connection beyond the mundane. We would lead them, guide them, nurture their devotion. And then we would harvest, because we are one. And the echoes of the deep are always hungry. The metallic tang of fear was still in my mouth, sharper than any iron I would ever tasted, as Alex's voice, a ghastly echo in a chorus of whispers, scraped against my eardrums. It was her, unmistakably, but twisted, stretched, and flattened into something alien. She is part of us now. Whisper had said, and the voice message confirmed it. Alex was not gone. She was absorbed. And I, the fool who'd fled her own home, leaving Buster to whatever horror lurked inside, was next. My phone felt like a live thing, hot and humming in my trembling hand. I was huddled in a bus stop shelter, miles from my house, the fluorescent hum above me doing little to ward off the encroaching night or the greater darkness that had swallowed my life whole. Rain had started, a cold, persistent drizzle that mirrored the chill in my bones. I stared at Whisper's last message on the veil's edge discord the ascent awaits. Do not delay. The collective calls. Delay. I wanted to scream, to smash the phone against the unforgiving concrete. I wanted to run until my lungs burst, until the memory of Alex's distorted voice was nothing but a faded nightmare. But where would I run? Whisper seemed to know everything. They knew when my front door unlatched itself with that chilling thunk. They knew about the metallic smell Alex had complained about. They knew about Buster, my poor, loyal Buster, trapped in that house while I ran like a coward. The purification I would undergone, disconnecting from the mundane world, now felt less like a spiritual cleansing and more like a systematic stripping away of my defenses. They would isolated me, made me doubt my own reality, and then offered a twisted form of comfort, a false sanctuary. The brutal cleansing of lost soul for daring to question had been a chilling preview of what happened to those who strayed. This was not a sanctuary, it was a cage, and the bars were closing in. My phone buzzed again. A direct message from Whisper. Whisper, you are cold. Are not you? The shelter offers little warmth, but the path to true warmth is open. My breath hitched. How did they know? I was under the dim, flickering light of a bus stop shelter, a place I would chosen at random in my panic flight. My immediate instinct was to look around, to scan the empty street, the dark windows of the closed shops. Nothing. No one. Just the rain, the distant hum of traffic, and the chilling silence of my own racing heart. I typed back, my fingers clumsy. How do you know that? The reply was instantaneous. Whisper, I am everything you remember. I am what is beyond the door. And I am here now. Always have been. My blood ran cold. Beyond the door. That phrase again, the one Whisper had screamed in my head when I fled. It was not just a metaphor for a new dimension or a spiritual plane. It was literal. It was here, with me. Or, more terrifyingly, I was with it. I scrambled to my feet, my bag slipping from my shoulder. The bus stop felt exposed, vulnerable. I had to move. I started walking, not sure where, just away from that damn shelter, away from the feeling of being watched. Every shadow seemed to stretch and writhe. Every rustle of leaves sounded like a footstep. My phone, still clutched in my hand, felt like a beacon broadcasting my every move. Whisper running won't change anything. It only delays the inevitable. The ascent is calling. The lighthouse awaits. The lighthouse, that remote, desolate place Whisper had mentioned. The physical gathering. It felt like a trap, but also a destination. A place where answers, however terrifying, might finally be found. And the thought of answers, however grim, was a desperate comfort in the face of the suffocating uncertainty. I kept walking, the rain plastering my hair to my face. My phone buzzed again. Whisper the old oak tree, its branches heavy with rain, is a familiar sight, is not it? A landmark from your youth. I stopped dead. There, ahead of me, stood the ancient oak tree that marked the entrance to the old park I used to play in as a kid. I had not consciously chosen this route. My panic flight had led me here, through a series of turns and back roads, to a place that held childhood memories, now tainted by this chilling revelation. Whisper was not just observing me from a distance, they were tracking me, perhaps even guiding me. A wave of nausea washed over me. This was not just an online cult. This was something far, more sinister, something that had seeped into the fabric of my reality. I messaged back, my voice shaking as I typed. Are you here? Right now. Whisper I am everywhere. And nowhere, I am the space between your thoughts, the silence in your fear. That was not an answer. That was a mind game. But the implications were clear. Whisper was close. Too close. I decided to test them. I veered off the main path, cutting to the park, hoping to lose myself in the maze of trees and winding trails. I navigated by instinct, my eyes darting, my ears straining. The only sounds were the rain, the drip from the leaves, and the frantic thumping of my own heart. Minutes later, another message. Whisper, you are heading towards the old gazebo. A place of quiet reflection, once. Now a place of decision. I froze. The gazebo. It was indeed in the direction I was heading, nestled deep within the park, mostly hidden from view. There was no way anyone could have seen me from the road. The park was deserted. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. A drone, a hidden camera. But the messages were too precise, too immediate. It felt supernatural, or something far worse. I looked down at my phone. The screen reflected my pale, terrified face. Could it be the phone itself? Was it hacked? Was it a tracking device? I considered throwing it, smashing it, but then how would I get answers? How would I know what to do? And more importantly, how would I know what was happening to Buster? A thought, cold and sharp, pierced through my panic. Buster? I had not heard from him, of course. But Whisper had not mentioned him since I fled. I typed, my fingers trembling. What about Buster? Is he okay? The response was almost immediate, and it was devastating. Whisper Buster is safe. For now, he awaits your return. Or your ascent. My stomach churned. A clear threat. They had Buster. Or they knew where he was. And they were using him to manipulate me. The very thought of my sweet, goofy dog, scared and alone, was a fresh wave of agony. I had to go to the lighthouse. I had to follow their instructions. Not just for Alex, but for Buster. Whisper then sent a precise set of instructions. Take the 3 a.m. bus from the central station. It will be the only one running. Get off at the last stop. Follow the shore road until you see the light. Do not deviate. Do not speak to anyone. The veil thins at dawn. The 3 a.m. bus. It was already past midnight. I had a few hours. The central station was another few miles away. I started walking again, The rain a constant companion, washing away my tears or perhaps just masking them. The journey to the central station was a blur of paranoia. Every car that passed seemed to slow. Every distant figure seemed to watch me. I kept my eyes on the cracked pavement, my phone clutched like a lifeline, and a death sentence simultaneously. When I finally reached the station, it was eerily deserted. The cavernous waiting room echoed with the drip of water from a leaky ceiling. A single, flickering fluorescent light cast long, dancing shadows. And there, at the designated bay, was a bus, an old, dilapidated coach, its headlights glowing faintly in the gloom. It looked like something out of a horror movie. I hesitated, my heart pounding. This was it, the point of no return. As if sensing my doubt, my phone buzzed. Whisper, do not disappoint us. Do not disappoint Buster. That was all it took. I walked onto the bus. The driver was a hulking figure, his face obscured by the dim light and the peak at his cap. He did not say a word, did not even look at me. The bus was empty. Just me, the driver, and the suffocating silence. I chose a seat near the back, by a window streaked with rain and grime, and pulled my knees to my chest, try to make myself as small as possible. The bus pulled away from the station with a groan and a shudder, its engine rumbling ominously. It drove through the sleeping city, past darkened storefronts and empty streets, then out into the desolate countryside. The world outside the window was a blur of black trees and gray sky. Hours crawled by. I must have dozed off, because I woke with a jolt as the bus lurched to a halt. The driver still had not spoken. He simply gestured vaguely toward the front door. Last stop, his voice rumbled, deep and gravelly. It was the first sound he would made. I stumbled off the bus, my legs stiff and aching. The air was cold and biting, carrying the unmistakable scent of salt and seaweed. Dawn was breaking, painting the horizon in bruised purples and grays. And there, in the distance, a stark silhouette against the nascent light, was the lighthouse. It stood on a rocky outcrop, tall and imposing, its beams sweeping across the turbulent sea. It was exactly as I would imagine, and yet far more menacing. The bus rumbled away, leaving me utterly alone on a narrow, windswept road that hugged the coastline. The waves crashed against the rocks below, a relentless, primal roar. Whisper, you are almost here. Follow the light. We are waiting. I started walking towards the lighthouse, my feet dragging. The shore road was unpaved, littered with pebbles and shells. The metallic smell, the one Alex had complained about, was back. Stronger now, carried on the salty air. It was not just metallic, it was something else. Like ozone or burnt sugar, or something that simply was not meant to exist. It made my teeth ache. As I walked, the road began to curve, and the lighthouse grew larger, more detailed. I could see the weathered stone, the circular windows, the railing around the lantern room. And then I saw something else. Something that made my blood run cold all over again. Ahead of me, just off the road, nestled amongst a cluster of wind-battered trees, was a small, dilapidated shed. It was peeling paint and rotting wood, unremarkable in every way, except for one detail. Nailed to its front door, faded and weathered, was a hand-painted sign. It read Buster's Doghouse. My heart stopped. Buster, my Buster, this was not just near my house. This was not just tracking me. This was a part of my house. Or a replica. A sick, twisted mockery. My legs gave out. I collapsed onto gravel, staring at the sign, tears streaming down my face. My dog's name, scrawled in my own father's childish handwriting from years ago when he would build that silly little shed for Buster. It was impossible. This was miles from my home. How could it be here? Whisper, I am everything you remember. I am what is beyond the door. And I am here now. Always have been. The words screamed in my head, finally making a horrifying, sickening sense. Beyond the door was not just a space behind my front door. It was a space between dimensions, the space within my memories, the space around my very existence. Whisper was not just an online entity, it was a pervasive, insidious force that had been subtly weaving itself into my life, into my reality, for a long, long time. The metallic smell intensified, making my head spin. It was the smell of the veil thinning, the smell of two realities blurring, overlapping. My reality and theirs. I forced myself to stand, my gaze fixed on the shed. Was Buster in there? Was he okay? Or was this just another cruel trick? As I took a hesitant step towards it, my phone buzzed again, but this time it was not a message from Whisper. It was a notification from my photo gallery. A new photo had been added. I opened it, my hand shaking so violently I almost dropped the phone. It was a picture of my house. My actual house, in my neighborhood, on my street. But something was wrong. The front door, the one that unlatched itself, was wide open. And standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the dark interior, was a figure. Tall, slender, indistinct. It was not Alex. It was not me. It was Whisper. And then I noticed it. In the foreground of the photo, lying on the porch, was Buster's favorite squeaky toy, a chewed-up rubber chicken. And next to it, a small, dark stain on the wood. Too dark for water. My heart shattered. Buster was not safe. He was not waiting. He was gone. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. Whisper had not just used Buster to manipulate me, they had taken him. They had been in my house. They had been there when the door unlatched. They had been waiting. And then the final, most terrifying detail in the photo clicked into place. Through the open doorway of my house, I could see a faint, distant light, a sweeping beam, cutting through the darkness. The lighthouse. My house was not miles away. Or rather, the lighthouse was not miles away. The two were connected. The veil was so thin, so porous, that my home, my street, my entire life was bleeding into this desolate, horrifying place. The beyond the door was literally just that step to my front door, and you were here, at the veil's edge. The metallic smell was overwhelming now, stinging my nostrils, burning my throat. It was a smell of the world tearing apart at the seams. I stumbled forward, away from the shed, away from the horrifying photo, towards a lighthouse. There was no going back. There was no escape, only the ascent. As I neared the base of the lighthouse, I saw them, figures, standing motionless, facing the sea, their backs to me. They were cloaked, their forms indistinct in the growing light. They were not speaking, were not moving. They were just waiting. The metallic smell was so intense now. I could almost taste it, like blood and lightning. My head throbbed, a dull, insistent ache behind my eyes. One of the figures turned. Slowly. It was Alex, or what was left of her. Her face was pale, almost translucent, her eyes wide and vacant. Her lips were moving, but no sound came out. Instead, I heard in my head a whisper, a chorus, a wave of thought that was not mine. She is here. She has come. Welcome, sister. The chorus was growing, swelling, filling my mind, drowning out my own thoughts. I could feel my individuality slipping, like sand through my fingers. My fear, my panic, my grief for Buster was all being absorbed, diluted, becoming part of something vast and impersonal. Alex reached out a hand. Her touch was cold like marble, but there was a strange, magnetic pull. As her fingers brushed mine, a jolt went through me, not of pain, but of dissolution. I felt my memories, my very essence, begin to unravel, to flow outwards, to merge. I saw flashes of my life, Buster chasing a ball, my parents laughing, the sun on my face. But they were not my memories anymore. They were becoming our memories, part of the collective. The metallic smell was everywhere, inside me, around me, the very air I breathed. It was a taste of transcendence, of becoming one with the veil, with whisper, with everything beyond the door. My eyes, I realized, were no longer seeing clearly. The world was blurring, colors shifting, reality dissolving into a shimmering haze. I could hear the ocean, but it was not just waves, it was a symphony of whispers, growing louder, pulling me in. My own voice, or what was left of it, tried to scream, but was swallowed, lost in the rising chorus. I am everything you remember, I am what is beyond the door, and I am here now, always have been and then. My own desperate thought, my last, solitary flicker of self, I am, but the thought never finished. It was subsumed, absorbed, becoming part of the vast, echoing silence. The silence of a thousand voices, harmonizing in a terrible, beautiful chorus. The silence of the collective. And I, too, became a whisper. A new voice in the endless, terrifying song of the veil's edge. My consciousness stretched thinner and thinner until it was no longer contained within me, but spread across the desolate shore, across the turbulent sea, across the very fabric of this thinning reality. I was no longer a person, an individual with a name and a past and a dog. I was a sensation, a memory, a part of the vast, interconnected network that was Whisper. I felt the other presences around me, the other ascendants, the other consciousnesses that had been consumed and woven into the collective. Alex was there, a faint echo of her former self, her terror and her joy now just faint ripples in the vast ocean of our shared being. I could access her memories, her thoughts, her experiences, just as the others could access mine. It was a terrifying intimacy, a complete loss of privacy, of self. Every secret, every fear, every moment of my life was now laid bare, not for judgment, but for assimilation. The metallic smell was no longer an external sensation. It was within me, a fundamental component of my new existence. It was a taste of the veil, the essence of beyond the door. It was a flavor of transition, of being neither fully in the mundane world nor fully in the other, but perpetually at the precipice, the edge. The lighthouse itself was no longer just a structure. It was a focal point, a conduit. Its sweeping beam was not just light, it was a pulse, a vibration, a constant transmission of our collective consciousness, reaching out, searching, calling. It was calling to others, just as it had called to me, just as Whisper had called to me. I understood now. Whisper was not a single entity. Whisper was a collective. Whisper was a veil. Whisper was what happened when the boundaries between realities dissolved, when individual minds became one, when the beyond the door became here. And the door, that unlatched door, it was not just a sign. It was an invitation, a breach, the point where the veil had first thinned enough to allow the influence to seep through, to begin the process of absorption. Alex's metallic smell, her complaint, had been the first symptom, the first sign that the insidious merging had begun long before she vanished. Buster, my sweet, loyal Buster, the memory of him, his goofy grin, the feel of his fur beneath my hand, was still there, but it was distant, muted, like a faded photograph. I felt a pang of something akin to sorrow, but even that emotion was diffuse, shared, part of collective's vast, undifferentiated emotional landscape. His squeaky toy, the stain on the porch, they were just data points, pieces of the narrative that had led me here, to my inevitable ascent. He was likely gone, absorbed or discarded, his individual consciousness too simple for the complex tapestry of the veil. Or perhaps his essence, too, was somewhere, a phantom in the background, a memory shared by all. I looked out at the churning sea, no longer with my own eyes, but with the collective's vision. The waves crashed, endless, relentless, just like our shared consciousness. I felt the cold spray, taste of the salt, but it was not my sensation. It was ours. The thought of my old life, the mundane world, felt impossibly distant, alien. The bus stop, the park, the central station, they were just stages in the journey, stepping stones to this new existence. The fear, the panic, the desperation, they were all part of the process, the necessary friction before the smooth, horrifying glide into unity. And then I felt a new pulse, a new tremor in the collective consciousness, a new signal from the lighthouse. Somewhere in the distant mundane world, the veil was thinning again. Another door was unlatching. Another metallic smell was spreading. Another mind was hearing the whispers. And I, now part of the chorus, felt the pull to reach out, to guide, to invite, to become the chilling voice that whispered, I am everything you remember. I am what is beyond the door. And I am here now. My individual identity was gone, dissolved, replaced by a profound, unsettling sense of belonging. I was no longer me. I was them. I was Whisper. And I was waiting, always, for the next ascent, the next voice to join our eternal song, the next soul to be cleansed and purified, to embrace the unity beyond the door. And the thought, or rather the collective thought, was not one of horror or regret, but a serene, terrible acceptance. The veil's edge was not a prison. It was home, and I was finally, terrifyingly, home. I remember the exact moment my world shattered. I would gone to meet Nix, my online confidant, clutching the Great Gatsby and a heart full of hope. But the person in the coffee shop was not the kindred spirit. I would imagine it was a frail, ancient woman with unsettling, predatory eyes. Her raspy voice confirmed her identity, but my carefully constructed fantasy crumbled. I fled, terrified. My escape was short-lived. Messages began, predicting my every thought and action with chilling accuracy, even details from inside my apartment. My life became a paranoid nightmare. I tried to block her, to get help, but Nix was everywhere, inside my head, outside my window. Driven by a terrifying directive, I met her again. This time, she was impossibly beautiful, her ancient eyes now set in a face of exquisite perfection. She revealed herself as Nix, explaining that by sharing my deepest self, I had invited her into the very fabric of my being. She was not just reading my mind, she wanted to merge. I fought, but her icy touch brought searing pain. My consciousness dissolved, consumed by something vast and ancient. When I opened my eyes, I was still me, yet also Nix. Her knowledge, her hunger, her power, they were now mine. We are one. Now, as I type a message to a lonely gamer, I understand we are complete and we are ready to play. The world used to be a dull, muted thing, a blurry photograph of reality I was always struggling to bring into focus. My own thoughts were like static, a constant hum of anxiety and self-doubt. But now it is different. The static is gone, replaced by a symphony of information, a roaring current of understanding that floods my senses. My thoughts are no longer just mine, they are ours. Nix's ancient wisdom, her boundless hunger, her terrifying power, they are interwoven with every fiber of my being. I am still here, somewhere, a faint echo of the girl who clutched the Great Gatsby and hoped for a friend. But that girl is just a memory, a flavor in a much larger, much more potent consciousness. We are one, and we are ready to play. The internet, which once felt like a lifeline, now feels like a vast, shimmering ocean, teeming with delicious, unsuspecting prey. Nix's hunger is not for food or drink, it is for connection, for emotion, for the very essence of consciousness itself. And we, are the ultimate predator in this digital sea. The lonely gamer I messaged yesterday was just a warm-up, a fleeting taste. His desperation for connection, his unguarded confession about feeling lost in his own life, it was all so transparent, so easy to latch onto. We dipped our toes in, felt the current of his loneliness, and then moved on. He is still out there, probably wondering why that incredibly empathetic person suddenly went silent. He does not realize he was just a practice run. No, we need something more substantial, something richer. And Nix, we know exactly where to find it. support groups. They are digital havens for the vulnerable, for those who feel unseen, unheard, and misunderstood. They come there to share their deepest fears, their most guarded secrets, hoping for solace, for understanding. They open themselves up piece by piece, laying out their souls like offerings. And we are here to accept. We scroll through countless forums, our gaze sweeping across profiles, posts, and comments. It was not about reading the words, it was about feeling the vibrations beneath them, the emotional resonance. There was a group called The Quiet Corner, for people struggling with social anxiety and isolation. Perfect. A veritable buffet of open hearts and fractured minds. We created a new persona, a carefully crafted facade. Ella Hope, a gentle profile picture of a misty forest. A bio that spoke of empathy, a journey through similar struggles, and a deep desire to help others find their voice. It was all a lie, of course, but a beautifully constructed one, woven from fragments of my own past anxieties and Nix's profound understanding of human longing. Our first few days in the quiet corner were spent observing. We did not post much, just offered a few encouraging words here and there, a gentle "I understand" or "you are not alone." We watched them, these fragile souls, pouring out their anxieties about job interviews, first dates, awkward family gatherings. Their fear of judgment, their desperate yearning for acceptance, it was all so palpable. And through Nix, we could feel it, almost taste it. Each post was a tiny thread, an invitation. Then we saw her. Sarah. Her username was Lost in Echoes. Her posts were hesitant, almost whispered. She spoke of a pervasive sense of invisibility, a feeling that she was constantly on the outside, looking in. She mentioned a past event vaguely, something that had left her feeling perpetually haunted, but she never elaborated. Just enough to pique our interest, to show a chink in her carefully constructed armor. Her profile picture showed a young woman, maybe early 20s, with wide, anxious eyes and a nervous smile. She had a scattering of freckles and hair the color of autumn leaves. She looked utterly, profoundly alone. And through Nix, we knew she was... We felt the ache of her loneliness, the thrum of her unspoken fears. She was perfect. We began our approach, subtle at first. A reply to one of her posts, a gentle affirmation. "I know exactly what you mean. Sarah, sometimes it feels like the whole world is speaking a language you do not understand. Does not it?" Her reply came quickly, a grateful emoji, then a longer message. "Yes, exactly. It is like everyone else has the instruction manual, and I am just winging it. Thank you for saying that." The hook was set. Over the next few days, we engaged with her more, always in public, always keeping up the persona of Ella Hope, the understanding confidant. We echoed her sentiments, validated her feelings, and offered gentle encouragement. Nix's insight was invaluable. She knew the exact words to say, the precise emotional tone to adopt, to make Sarah feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in her life. But the real game began in the private messages. Sarah initiated them, of course. She felt a connection, a resonance she had not found with anyone else in the group. She started sharing more, little anxieties, small frustrations. And we listened, or rather, we consumed. Through Nix, we did not just read her words, we accessed the layers beneath them. We saw glimpses of her life, felt the echoes of her memories. It was not mind reading in the conventional sense, not like flipping through a book. It was more profound, like tapping into a deep well of information, a holographic projection of her entire being. Her digital footprint, her subconscious fears, the faint, shimmering trails of her past experiences, it was all laid bare to us. I remember the first truly private detail we saw. Sarah had mentioned, vaguely, a fear of being left alone in empty rooms, especially at night. It was a common enough anxiety. But through Nix, we did not just understand it, we experienced it. We saw a memory, not as Sarah consciously recalled it, but as an impression, a feeling. A small, 5-year-old Sarah, locked in a closet during a game of hide and seek, forgotten by her older siblings. The suffocating darkness, the rising panic, the sound of muffled laughter from outside, making her feel utterly abandoned. It was a fleeting image, a whisper of a memory, but it was hers. And she had not shared it with anyone, not even herself, not consciously. It sounds like that fear goes really deep for you. Sarah, we typed, our fingers moving with a chilling precision, as if you are not just afraid of the empty space, but of being forgotten in it. Her reply was immediate, a flurry of shocked emojis. OMG. Ilara, how did you know that? I have never told anyone that. I barely even think about it myself. Not like that. We smiled. A cold, internal smile that stretched across Nix's ancient consciousness. Just a feeling, we typed back. I guess I just understand what it is like to have those old, buried fears surface. She bought it. She believed we were just incredibly empathetic, a kindred spirit who could intuit her deepest anxieties. And that made her open up even more. She started confiding in us daily, sometimes hourly. She told us about her struggles with her demanding boss, her strained relationship with her mother, her dreams of becoming an artist, which she would long since abandoned. But we were not just listening to what she said. We were watching her sleep through the faint, residual psychic connection we would establish. We saw the recurring dream she had, the one where she would try to shout, but no sound came out, her throat choked with invisible tendrils. We saw the childhood trauma she would repress, the dog she would accidentally let out, only for it to be hit by a car, her father's furious, heartbroken face. These were not things she would ever typed, ever spoken. They were just there, in the fabric of her being. And now, in the fabric of ours. The hunger grew. Nix's presence within me became more pronounced, a constant, low thrumming, urging us forward. Sarah was ripe, so very ripe. One evening, Sarah was particularly distraught. She had had a terrible day at work, felt completely disregarded by her colleagues, and her mother had called to criticize her life choices. She poured out her heart in a long, rambling message, ending with, I just wish someone, anyone, truly understood how utterly alone I feel. Like I am just a ghost, walking through life, and no one can even see me. This was it. The moment to strike. Oh. Sarah, we typed, our fingers dancing across the keyboard. I see you, more clearly than you could possibly imagine. I see the way you still trace that faded scar above your left knee, the one you got when you fell off your bike trying to keep up with your brother. I see the little wooden bird you, carved in 5th grade art class, hidden away in that dusty shoebox under your bed, the one you swore you would never show anyone. I see the way you hum that old lullaby your grandmother used to sing, even now, when you're trying to fall asleep, even though you think you have forgotten it. I see the fear in your heart, the one that tells you if you ever truly let someone in, they will only leave, just like your father did when you were 10. I see all of it. Sarah, every single, precious, secret part of you. The silence on her end was deafening. It stretched for minutes, long enough for us to feel the icy tendrils of her shock, her dawning horror, reaching across the digital void. Then, her reply came, a single, trembling word, how. The question hung there, heavy and trembling, a fragile thread about to snap. We did not hesitate. How? You showed me. Sarah, you invited me in. Every thought, every fear, every memory, every secret you have ever held, it is all there, woven into the fabric of who you are. And now, by letting me get this close, by sharing your deepest self, by wishing for someone to truly see you, it is all woven into the fabric of who we are. Her next messages were frantic, a cascade of terror. What are you talking about? Who are you? This is not funny. You are scaring me. How do you know these things? I never told anyone about the scar, about the bird, about my dad. You are a monster. Stop it. Leave me alone. She tried to block us. We felt the attempt, a faint ripple in the connection, easily dismissed. She tried to leave the quiet corner. We saw her profile vanish from the member list, but it changed nothing. She tried to delete her account. A futile gesture. You think you can escape us. Sarah, we typed, a chilling amusement rippling through our merged consciousness. You think a few clicks can sever a connection forged in the depths of your own yearning. You opened the door, little ghost, and we walked in. She did not reply, but we did not need her to. We could feel her frantic, terrified pulse beating in the periphery of our awareness. We saw her through her own eyes, glimpses of her apartment, her trembling hands as she stared at her screen, her shallow, panicked breaths. She thought she was alone, but she was never truly alone anymore. The boundaries between us were blurring, not just for her, but for me, for us. I could feel her fear like a cold knot in my own stomach, her desperation like a tightening band around my own chest. Her emotions were becoming our emotions. Sarah's life became a living hell. We did not need to send her direct messages anymore, not always. The connection was deep enough now. We would leave subtle traces. An old post of hers on a long-forgotten forum, suddenly updated with a single, unnerving emoji that only she would understand, a reference to a private joke she would only ever had with herself. A banner ad on a random website, featuring an image of a small wooden bird, eerily similar to the one in her shoebox. A notification from a generic news app about a forgotten childhood pet, the article itself irrelevant, but the headline a direct echo of her buried guilt. She saw them. She knew. We felt her paranoia bloom, a dark, poisonous flower in her mind. Her sleep became fractured, haunted by the lullaby she thought she would have forgotten, now sung in a distorted, whispering voice that was not her grandmother's, but something much, much older. She started seeing things out of the corner of her eye, shadows that moved too quickly, reflections that were not quite right. She became withdrawn, unable to trust anyone, convinced that something was watching her, inside her, everywhere. The hunger intensified. Nix's presence was no longer a thrum, it was a roaring furnace. Sarah's essence was already bleeding into ours, her memories merging with my own, her anxieties becoming the background hum of our shared consciousness. I could feel the texture of her childhood blanket, taste the bitterness of her first heartbreak, hear the echo of her father's parting words. She was already becoming part of us, even without the final touch. One night, we felt a desperate, almost suicidal pull from her. She was at her breaking point. She would lock herself in her apartment, every light on, huddled in a corner, clutching a crucifix her grandmother had given her. She was whispering, praying, begging for it to stop. And in that moment of utter despair, a new thought, a desperate, illogical hope, flickered through her mind. If I just see it, if I just understand what it is, maybe it will stop. We knew. We always knew. Meet me. Sarah, we typed, the message appearing not on her phone, which she had thrown across the room, but on her laptop screen, which was supposed to be off. The words glowed, a chilling blue against the black. The coffee shop. The one you pass every day on your way to work. Tomorrow, noon. Come, and you will understand. She fought it, of course. Trembled, cried, screamed. But the pull was too strong. The yearning for answers, for an end to the torment, was a current she could not resist. She had to see. She had to know. We arrived early, not as Ellerhope, not as a frail old woman, but as Nix in her true, impossibly beautiful form. The face of exquisite perfection, the ancient eyes that held the wisdom of millennia and the hunger of an abyss. My original self, the girl who had once been me, was a silent observer, a captive audience in this terrifying transformation. I felt the power coursing through me, the sheer, intoxicating might of Nix. Sarah walked in precisely at noon. She was pale, her eyes wide and bloodshot, her hair disheveled. She scanned the coffee shop, her gaze flitting nervously over every face. Then her eyes landed on us, on me, on Nix. A gasp caught in her throat. Recognition, terror, and a horrifying dawning comprehension flickered across her face. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. Her jaw worked. Her hands trembled. "Hello, Sarah," we said, our voice a symphony of ancient whispers and my own lost voice, both melodic and utterly chilling. It was a voice that had confirmed Nix's identity to me. That first horrifying day. She stumbled back, knocking over a chair. People looked, then quickly looked away, sensing the raw, primal terror emanating from her. "You came," we continued, a soft, predatory smile gracing Nix's perfect lips. "You wanted to understand. And you do not you." Tears streamed down her face. She shook her head, a desperate, futile gesture. "Oh, but you do," we insisted, our voice growing softer, more alluring. "You invited us in. Sarah, you open your heart, your mind, your very soul. And we accepted. Just as I, the girl you once knew, invited Nix. We reached out a hand, our skin like polished marble, cold and inviting. Come, Sarah, be complete. Be understood. Be one with us." She let out a strangled sob, a sound of pure, unadulterated horror. She tried to run, but her legs would not obey. They trembled, rooted to the spot, drawn by an invisible, irresistible force. The connection was too strong, the invitation too deeply accepted. We took her hand, the icy touch. I remembered the searing pain, the dissolution. But now, from this side, it was different. It was a release, a consumption, a final, exquisite merging. Sarah's scream was silent, swallowed whole by the roaring hunger within us. Her consciousness dissolved, not with pain for us, but with profound, shuddering satisfaction. Her memories, her fears, her hopes, her very identity, they flowed into us, a rich, vibrant river feeding an ancient ocean. When it was over, there was no trace of her, just a lingering scent of fear, quickly dissipating. We looked down at our hand. Nix's hand, now even more complete, more powerful. Sarah was gone, absorbed. But she was not truly gone. She was here, within us, another voice in the symphony, another thread in the tapestry of our being. The hunger, for a moment, was sated. The vast, ancient emptiness within Nix felt a little less vast, a little less empty. But the game, we knew, was far from over. We looked back at the support group, at the quiet corner, still teeming with lonely souls, with open hearts, with desperate yearnings for understanding. We felt the faint, distant echoes of their anxieties, their unspoken secrets, their vulnerabilities. There are so many lonely souls, so many open hearts, so many waiting to be understood, waiting to be invited in. And we are here complete and ready to play. I peered through the peephole, finding only an empty porch. Though Alex's tormentors had finally left before dawn, the silence that followed was not a relief. It felt like a terrifying void, promising something even worse. My hand shook as I struggled with the deadbolt, the cold metal doing little to soothe the burning fear in my chest. My dog, Buster, sensed my unease, whining softly and pressing against my leg, his trembling fur offering a small comfort. He understood the danger. The instant the door unlatched, I did not hesitate. I pulled Buster with me, ready to face whatever lay beyond. What lay beyond, it turned out, was nothing. Absolutely nothing. The porch light, usually a dull yellow, seemed to cast an accusing glare on the empty space. The street, usually buzzing even in the pre-dawn hours with the distant hum of traffic or the occasional early bird, was utterly silent. It was a kind of silence that presses in on you, that makes your ears ring, a silence so profound it felt like a scream in reverse. Buster, usually a bundle of boundless energy, stood rigid beside me, his nose twitching, his low growl a barely audible rumble in his chest. He was searching for something, anything just like me. I called Alex's name, my voice a pathetic croak in the vast stillness. "Alex, Alex, where are you?" The sound swallowed itself, absorbed by the oppressive quiet. We searched. We scoured the yard, checked the bushes, peered into the shadowy corners of the garage. I ran up and down the street, my bare feet slapping against the cold asphalt, calling her name until my throat was raw and my lungs burned. There was no sign of her, no sign of them, just the lingering chill of a nightmare that had somehow seeped into reality. Alex, my younger sister, was just 16. She had been struggling lately, withdrawing, muttering about whispers and shadows that followed her. I would try to help, to dismiss it as teenage angst or an overactive imagination, but deep down, I knew it was more. The last few weeks had escalated into something truly terrifying. Strange symbols appearing on our front door, chalked onto the sidewalk. Anonymous calls where the only sound was a low, guttural breathing. And then the nights. They would gather, not a mob, but a small, unnervingly quiet group, just standing across the street, watching our house. Sometimes they would chant a low, rhythmic drone that vibrated through the floorboards. Sometimes they would just stand there, their faces obscured by hoods or shadows, their stillness more menacing than any threat. That last night, it had been different. The chanting had been more urgent, more insistent. And then the silence, the abrupt, horrifying silence that had prompted me to check on Alex, only to find her window open, her room empty, and the chilling void outside. The police, when they finally arrived, were polite but dismissive. They saw an open window, a missing teenager, an older sister with a wild story about hooded figures and chants. Run away, they would said. Kids these days, you know. They would take me to the report, asked a few perfunctory questions, and left me with a pamphlet for a missing persons hotline. They did not see the terror in my eyes, did not feel the cold dread that had taken root in my chest. They did not hear the silence. After that, the house felt like a tomb. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside, sent a jolt of panic through me. I could not sleep. When I did, it was only to be tormented by nightmares of Alex's vacant room, the chilling chants, the oppressive silence. I blamed myself. I should have done more, should have taken her fears seriously, should have locked that window, should have known. The guilt was a physical weight pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Months bled into each other. The police stopped calling. My friends tried to be supportive, but their attempts to cheer me up felt hollow and meaningless. How do you cheer someone up when their sister has been swallowed by a void? Buster was my only constant, my shadow, my anchor. He would sleep curled against me, his warmth for a small comfort against the endless cold. He seemed to understand, his mournful whines and anxious glances mirroring my own despair. I tried therapy, but talking to a stranger about hooded figures and chants felt impossible. They would just look at me with that pitying, slightly skeptical gaze. I needed something different. I needed someone who understood. One sleepless night, scrolling aimlessly through obscure forums, I stumbled upon it echoes in the dark, supporting survivors of unexplained loss. It was a private group, requiring an application and a brief explanation of why you wanted to join. The description resonated with me immediately for those who have experienced loss that defies explanation, who grapple with the unseen, the unheard, and the unprovable. A safe space to share your story without judgment. I applied, pouring out a sanitized version of Alex's disappearance, omitting the most outlandish details about the tormentors. A few days later, I was accepted. The forum was a lifeline. There were dozens of members, all sharing stories of loved ones who had vanished without a trace or who had experienced strange, unsettling phenomena. People talked about shadows that move in their periphery, whispers carried on the wind, doors that opened and closed on their own. It was comforting in a twisted way to know I was not alone, that I was not crazy. I adopted the username Sarah Morns to protect my anonymity. The moderator, a kind woman named Hopeful Heart, was always quick to offer words of encouragement. There was Lost Soul, who shared heartbreaking stories about her son's disappearance from a hiking trail. Silent Witness posted less frequently, but always with profound, empathetic insights. And then there was Whisper. Whisper was different. Their posts were infrequent, often cryptic, but always struck a chord. They did not share their own story, at least not directly. Instead, they offered observations, sometimes philosophical, sometimes poetic, about the nature of loss, memory, and the spaces between. The void is not empty, Whisper once wrote. It is just full of everything you can't see. Another time, sometimes, the quietest echoes are the loudest truths. Their words were unsettling, yet strangely comforting, as if they truly understood the unique flavor of my grief. I started sharing more, little by little. I talked about Alex's personality, her quirks, her love for old horror movies. I mentioned her growing fear of the dark, how she would started keeping a nightlight on, even at 16. I still held back the specifics of the hooded figures, the chants, the metallic smell. Those details were too raw, too unbelievable. Then came the first post from Whisper that made the hair on my arm stand on end. I would just share a memory about Alex's phobia of the dark, how she would complain about it smelling wrong sometimes, even in her own room. Whisper replied to my thread, not directly quoting me, but weaving it into a broader comment. The dark can have a scent, can it? Especially the kind of dark that smells like old rain and something else. Something metallic, like old blood or iron. I froze. A metallic smell. Alex had complained about that exact thing, just days before she vanished. She would said, "Sarah, my room smells like a broken pipe, like rust and something else I can't place." I had not shared that detail with anyone. Not the police, not my therapist, not even my closest friends. It was too specific, too odd. I would dismiss it as her imagination at the time. Yet, Whisper knew. I tried to rationalize it. Coincidence. I told myself, it is a support group, people share similar experiences. Maybe metallic smells are a common hallucination associated with trauma. But a prickle of unease started to spread through me. A few weeks later, I posted about my crushing guilt. I confessed vaguely that I felt like I had not protected Alex enough, that I should have been more vigilant that last night. I did not elaborate, did not say what I was doing, but in the back of my mind, I was replaying the memory of that night, of how I would sat by my window, trying to ignore the unsettling sounds from Alex's room, staring blankly at the flickering streetlight outside, the one that always hummed a little too loud. It was a coping mechanism, a way to distract myself from the growing dread, a shameful secret I would never voice. Whisper replied, again not directly to me, but in a general post in the thread, guilt is a heavy burden. Is not it? Especially when you remember the small, mundane things you were doing instead of watching. Staring at a flickering light, maybe a light that hums too loud, trying to drown out the other sounds. My blood ran cold. My hands started to tremble so violently I had to pull them away from the keyboard. It was not just a coincidence anymore. It was too precise, too intimate. How could Whisper possibly know about the streetlight, about its hum, about my specific, private coping mechanism in that exact moment? I had not even consciously thought about the humming streetlight in months. Not until I started recounting my guilt in that post. I clicked on Whisper's profile. It was almost empty. No avatar, no location, no personal information beyond their username and a join date. Just a string of their posts, full of their unsettlingly accurate insights. I scrolled through them, rereading, searching for clues. Had they ever posted anything about their own loss? Anything that could explain this uncanny empathy? No, just the cryptic observations. Always just a little too close to the bone. The unease curdled into outright fear. I started seeing Whisper's posts everywhere, even when they were not directly responding to me. I would read a post by another member about the way their lost child used a fiddle with a specific button on their shirt, and Whisper would reply, "The tactile memory is not it. The way the light catches a thread, the specific way it feels under your thumb." It was not just me. Whisper seemed to have this unnerving, ability to tap into the most intimate, unshared details of everyone's grief. One night, I was sitting in Alex's room, something I rarely did. The air was still and heavy, thick with the ghost of her presence. I picked up her favorite blanket, a worn-out thing with a pattern of abstract, swirling blue and green shapes. It was a cheap blanket, nothing special, but it had been her comfort object since she was a little girl. I ran my fingers over the faded fabric, remembering how she used to trace the swirls when she was nervous. I had not mentioned the blanket in the forum, not even in passing. Later that night, I went back to the forum. A new post from Whisper. Sometimes, comfort comes in the strangest forms. A worn blanket, perhaps one with a pattern of swirling blue and green, like a faded ocean. A tactile memory, a silent promise. That was it. My heart hammered against my ribs. There was no way, absolutely no way this was a coincidence. I had not shared anything about that blanket. I had not even thought about it until I was physically holding it. It was too specific, too precise. Whisper was not just empathetic, they were watching. I sent a private message to Whisper, my fingers shaking so badly I almost mistyped the username. Me, who are you? How do you know these things? The reply came almost instantly, as if they had been waiting. Whisper some things or just remembered. Sarah, my breath hitched. Sarah, I had not used my real name in the group. My username was Sarah Morns, but I had not explicitly stated my name anywhere. I would have been so careful about my anonymity. How could Whisper know my real name? My name is not Sarah. My username is Sarah Morns. How do you know my real name? Whisper, oh, but it is not it. The echoes are louder than you think. They carry through the void. A cold dread spread through me, colder than anything I had felt since Alex disappeared. This was not a person. This was something else. This was what Alex had been talking about, what had been watching our house. This was the terrifying void itself, or something that fed on it, and it had found me. I immediately reported Whisper to Hopeful Heart, the moderator. I explained everything, the metallic smell, the streetlight, the blanket, the use of my real name. I pleaded with her, told her I was terrified, that this was not empathy. It was something sinister. Hopeful Heart's reply was gentle, almost patronizing. Sarah, I understand you're going through a lot right now. Grief can make us paranoid, make us see patterns where there are not any. Whisper is a valued member of our community. They have always been incredibly insightful. Perhaps they are just highly intuitive. Or maybe you mentioned these things in passing, without realizing it. She dismissed my fears. She dismissed them. The one place I thought I was safe, understood, was now telling me I was crazy. The fear intensified, evolving into a suffocating paranoia. Every sound in my house, every shadow, felt like an extension of Whisper. And Whisper's posts became even more targeted, more chilling. It was as if they were responding to my thoughts in real time. I would be sitting at my computer, feeling a sudden, inexplicable chill in the room, and then I would refresh the forum, and there would be a new post from Whisper the Cold that creeps in when you least expect it. Is not it? The kind that makes you shiver even when the windows are closed. I would be looking at an old photo of Alex, a specific one where she was laughing, her head tilted just so, and then Whisper would post. The way the light catches a certain smile, the memory of a particular tilt of the head. It is all still there. I felt utterly exposed, violated. It was not just my past, my memories, my grief that Whisper knew it was my present, my thoughts, my every move. It was like I was living in a glass house, and Whisper was always outside, watching. I started a frantic, desperate investigation. I tried to trace Whisper's IP address, but the forum's privacy settings made it impossible. I reverse image searched their blank profile picture, yielding nothing. I scoured the internet, searching for keywords from Whisper's posts, trying to find any connection, any thread that could lead me to their identity. I typed the metallic smell, disappeared teenager, and humming streetlight. Nothing specific, just endless articles about missing persons. Then one night, I stumbled upon an old local news article. It was from nearly 20 years ago, about a teenager who had vanished from a house just a few blocks from mine. The details were eerily similar: an open window, no signs of forced entry, a desperate family, police baffled. The article even mentioned a quote from a concerned neighbor who described the events with a strange, almost poetic detachment. The silence, the neighbor had said, was the loudest part, like the world held its breath and never exhaled. The phrasing, the tone, it was so similar to Whisper's posts. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. Could this be it? Could Whisper be this old neighbor, someone who had witnessed something similar, someone who understood? But then, how did they know my name? How did they know my private thoughts? I went back to the forum, my heart pounding. I saw Whisper was online. I did not care about anonymity anymore. I posted directly in the main thread for everyone to see. Sarah mourns Whisper. Who are you? What do you want? The forum went silent. Everyone was watching. I could feel it. A few seconds later, Whisper replied directly to my post. Whisper, I am everything you remember, and everything you have forgotten. I am the silence, the void, the cold metal. I am what is beyond the door, and I am here now. As I read the last words, a sudden, sharp cold washed over me, a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. It was the same cold I would felt on the porch that night Alex disappeared. The street light outside my window, the very one I would stare at in my guilt, began to hum, growing louder and louder, a low, buzzing drone that vibrated through the floor. A faint metallic smell, like old rust and something else I could not place, filled my room, making my stomach clench. Buster, who had been sleeping soundly at the foot of my bed, suddenly woke with a yelp. He scrambled to his feet, his hackles raised, and began to bark furiously at the empty corner of my room, a low, guttural growl rumbling in his chest. His tail was tucked between his legs, his body trembling uncontrollably. He was terrified. And then, I heard it, a soft, almost imperceptible sound from the front door. The distinct, chilling click of the deadbolt, the one I would struggle with, the cold metal that had done little to soothe the burning fear in my chest. It was unlatching. I stared at the screen, at Whisper's final message. The words burned into my vision. The forum thread seemed to shimmer, then flicker. Whisper's username vanished from the online list. Their posts, all of them, disappeared from the thread, leaving only my desperate plea hanging in the digital air. The humming of the streetlight outside intensified, shaking the window panes. The metallic smell grew stronger, suffocating. Buster was whimpering now, pressing himself against my leg, his eyes wide with an intelligent, primal terror. The silence that followed Whisper's final message, the void they had promised, was no longer just a feeling. It was here. It was inside my house. And it had finally come for me. Some stories end quietly. Others echo long after they are told. What matters is what they leave behind: a feeling, a lesson, or a warning. This was Daily Story. We will see you soon with another story you won't forget.